Chapter 79. Lon Xiong timidly looked at her and then carefully said, Perhaps it's because young Miss Mood hasn't been very good these days. That's it? Isn't it? Gu Fengzi cut her off. Yes. Lon Xiong let out a sigh of relief and nodded. Let's not talk about anything else, but young Miss shouldn't have made young Master unhappy. This servant can see that young Master seems to have changed a lot these days. You need to put down your status and soften your attitude, otherwise, don't say any more. Gu Fengzi said in a low voice, and her face turned pale. She was clearly standing under the sun, but she felt a chill run down her spine. Lon Xiong didn't need to say anything. Recalling the scenes, it was enough for her to realize her mistake. When dealing with men, acting spoiled and throwing a tantrum was fun, but sometimes, it was necessary to be soft. It wasn't just women, men also needed to be coaxed. In the days that she wasn't around, Big Cousin had been coaxed by that vixen Sang Wan. Gu Fengzi was secretly annoyed. She had overlooked it. I know your loyalty to me. If it wasn't for your reminder, I'm afraid I still wouldn't have realized it. When we return, I will reward you well. Gu Fengzi softened her attitude and spoke to Lon Xiong gently. This servant will only feel better if young Miss is better. This servant should be loyal to young Miss. Lon Xiong quickly smiled to show her sincerity. Young Miss, you're finally awake. As long as you don't ask this servant to invite young Master, this servant is willing to do anything. It's good that you can think this way. Gu Fengzi said with a smile. Don't worry, I won't treat you unfairly in the future. Let's go, we'll return to Peony Park. If he wanted her to be a filial daughter and observe filial piety, then she would. If he wanted her to be clear about her status, then she would remember it. If he disliked her for being a nuisance, then she would be considerate. How hard was this? When he saw how good she was, then he would naturally change his mind. For the next 2 or 3 days, other than greeting Wang every morning, Gu Fengzi obediently stayed in Peony Park to observe filial piety for her father. She didn't bother Shi Fengju again. She only took the time to greet Wang to express her concern for her aunt and cousin. Shi Fengju took it as her recognizing her identity, which was exactly what he wished for. So, he let go of the matter. On this day, Gu Fengzi claimed that she had dreamt of her father the night before and wanted to go to Guangling Temple to pray for blessings. This was a matter of accumulating good karma, so of course, Wang Shi would not stop her. Instead, she praised Gu Fengzi before ordering Sang Wan to arrange for a carriage to accompany Gu Fengzi. Gu Fengzi politely thanked her older sister, and wasn't picky about Sang Wan's arrangements. She left early the next morning and was expected to return home in 3 days. The Mid-Autumn Festival was just around the corner. Sang Wan and the other stewards were busy preparing for the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet and sending gifts to their relatives and friends. They were extremely busy. Seeing that Gu Fengzi suddenly became low-key and even left home for 3 days was a good thing for Sang Wan. 2 days before the Mid-Autumn Festival, guests suddenly came to visit the Shi family. Actually, they couldn't be considered guests because they were the eldest daughter of the Shi family, Shi Fengju's older sister, Shi Yumei, and her husband, Ran Jixian. At noon that day, the couple knocked on the Shi family's door with Ran Jixian's concubine, who was also Shi Yumei's dowry, Cui Zhu. This eldest daughter of the Shi family took after her mother's style and was even better than her. Just like her mother, she was a little muddle-headed and paranoid. However, she was even more arrogant and domineering than her mother. If she believed that something was right, then it was right. No one could say that it was wrong. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to deal with someone with these two temperaments. What was even rarer was that this eldest daughter of the Shi family was extremely doted on by her mother. It could be said that in the Shi family, she could get whatever she wanted. No one dared to say anything. When the gatekeeper saw the couple arrive, he hurriedly bowed and greeted them with a smile. Eldest young master, eldest young madam, you're here. Shi Yumei raised the corner of her mouth and scolded with a smile. What's wrong? Eldest young madam, what's wrong with me going back to my own family? Look at how shocked you are. Your eyeballs are about to fall out of their sockets. Little monkey, why aren't you asking someone to lead the way? I want to see my mother. Yes, yes. Eldest young madam, this way please. The gatekeeper nodded and bowed as he personally led the three of them to the second gate. When the older female servant at the second gate saw them, she hurriedly nodded and bowed as she led them in with a flattering smile. A young maidservant had already run off to inform the first madam, Wang Shi. Eldest young madam was going back to her own family. No one dared to ask her to wait for the message unless they were tired of living. When Wang heard the young maidservant's report, she couldn't help but be startled. She frowned and asked, "Is this true? You're not talking nonsense, are you? Eldest Missy, why did you come here without saying anything?" Wang didn't believe her and ordered Nurse Jiang to send someone else to the second gate to take a look. On the other side, Shi Yumei and Ran Jixuan had already walked over. Concubine Cui Zhu lowered her head and silently followed behind them. Ran Jixuan saw that the servant leading the way kept smiling and fawning at Shi Yumei. Shi Yumei also kept chatting and joking with them. She didn't put him, the head of the household, in her eyes. Ran Jixuan's face couldn't help but become gloomy. He simply put his hands behind his back and leisurely paced back and forth. He cleared his throat and turned to Cui Zhu with a gentle smile. "Are you tired after traveling for 2 days?" When Shi Yumei heard this, she stopped in her tracks and turned around. She glared at Cui Zhu and was about to scold her, but she found that her husband didn't have Cui Zhu in his eyes. Instead, he stood there stiffly and looked in a direction. His face was full of amazement and admiration. Damn lecher! Shi Yumei couldn't help but curse in her heart. She walked back to Ran Jixuan's side and followed his gaze. She saw a group of servant girls surrounding a graceful woman walking into the distance. The woman was wearing an orange-red flower-patterned date red satin jacket and a turmeric multicolored chrysanthemum pleated skirt. Her glossy black hair was tied up at her temples. From afar, one could see the luxurious pearls and jade on her temples. The pearls hanging from her temples trembled and shone brightly. That woman was incomparably beautiful and elegant, and her temperament was even more outstanding. Just looking at her back made people feel admiration in their hearts. They wished they could turn around and look at her in the midst of hundreds of flowers so that they could clearly see her true appearance. A beauty. A true beauty. Ran Jixuan was intoxicated by her beauty. He couldn't help but think that this woman was elegant and noble. She must be a wonderful person with a mind full of poetry. In his mind, he couldn't help but think of the poem, "A Beautiful Woman Reading at Night." He secretly regretted that this woman's hair was tied up in a matron's hair. He didn't know which man had the good fortune of reading at night. "Master, we should go. Don't let my mother wait for too long." Shi Yumei kept winking at Ran Jixuan from the side. Who knew that Ran Jixuan was in a daze and didn't notice it at all. Shi Yumei glared at the disappearing figure and deliberately shouted in Ran Jixuan's ear. Ran Jixuan was startled and jumped far away with a cry. He frowned and said, "What are you doing?" "Rude. Really rude. How could there be such a rude woman in the world?" Comparing the two, Ran Jixuan felt that the woman he saw earlier was much better, and he couldn't help but stare at Shi Yumei with disgust. Shi Yumei was furious, but she didn't want to quarrel with her husband in front of everyone. She also didn't want others to say that her husband was unfaithful. She sneered and said, "I'm reminding you. Hurry up and leave. Don't let my mother wait for too long. You're the son-in-law of the Shi family. You can't ask your mother-in-law to wait for you, right?" Ran Jixuan snorted vaguely, flicked his sleeves and left. "Shi family? What's wrong with the Shi family? Don't think that you're so great just because you have some stinky money. Your whole family stinks of money. I'm a pure scholar. I won't be tainted by your stinky money." Shi Yumei's face darkened when she saw him humiliating her in front of everyone. She glanced at the servants and felt relieved when she saw that there was nothing wrong with them. She asked one of them, "Who was the woman who just passed by?" The servant obviously knew who it was, but she didn't dare to say. She smiled and said vaguely, in reply to eldest Missy, the old slave didn't see clearly and didn't know who eldest Missy is talking about. "Who else could it be? It's that woman who was dressed like a butterfly. You really didn't see clearly? I think you're really old." Shi Yumei snorted. Her eyes suddenly became sharp and she emphasized the word, old. The servant's face changed. Although eldest Missy was married, she had never treated herself as an outsider in the Shi family. If she wanted to get angry, she could send a servant away with just a few words. I think it's our young mistress. The servant hurriedly changed her words. After thinking for a while, she added, but the distance was too far. The old slave really didn't see clearly. Our young mistress? Shi Yumei raised her eyebrows. Is she the girl who married into the Sang family? When Shi Fengju got married, something happened at home and she didn't come back. Therefore, she had never seen Sang Wan before. This time, not only the servant who answered, but also the 2 or 3 servants who led the way changed their faces. They just laughed and didn't dare to say anything. Shi Yumei sneered, I didn't say anything wrong. If I'm not afraid, why are you afraid? Humph, if she has the ability, she should ask me face to face. It's too easy for her. She only knows how to wrap our family's silk around her body. She doesn't even know if she's worthy of wearing it or not. Why should a poor girl like her enter her family to enjoy life, while she, a pampered daughter of a wealthy family, had to suffer with her husband? The more Shi Yumei thought about it, the angrier she became. She couldn't help but curse for a while before walking towards her mother's courtyard. Coincidentally, the group of people bumped into Xiao Chun, who was sent by Nanny Jiang. Xiao Chun recognized Shi Yumei and knew that this Missy loved to be ostentatious and loved to be treated with respect. Her eyes lit up and she rushed forward to kneel down and kowtow to Shi Yumei in surprise and joy. She said with a smile, as expected, eldest Missy is back. Eldest mistress is thinking about eldest Missy. Quickly get up. Quickly get up. You're my mother's maidservant. How can you kneel before me? Shi Yumei was happy. She bent down and personally helped Xiao Chun up. She said with a smile, my mother loves me the most. She even knew to send someone to pick me up. Of course, Xiao Chun wasn't stupid enough to say that Jiang Mama sent her to verify the news. She helped Shi Yumei walk back and said with a smile, of course. Who doesn't know that eldest mistress loves eldest Missy the most? Chapter 80. She is my mother after all. Shi Yumei was happy, proud, and touched. She asked Xiao Chun, how is mother? Is she in a good mood recently? What have you been doing? Xiao Chun quickly answered her questions. Seeing that Xiao Chun had not returned for a long time, Wang knew that her eldest daughter must have arrived. After a moment of confusion, Wang couldn't help but be happy again. She smiled and said, I didn't expect Yumei to come back. It's good to keep them for the festival. What a lively family. Good, that's great. As she said this, she hurriedly asked Mama Jiang if she should change her clothes and hair if they weren't appropriate enough. Nanny Jiang couldn't help but smile and said, eldest Missy is your daughter, and the son-in-law is also a junior. There's no need to be so particular. Wang thought about it and nodded. She ordered the servants to quickly prepare pastries, fruits, and good tea. Mother, I came back to see you. Shi Yumei trotted and shouted as soon as she entered the courtyard. She didn't care about her husband's dissatisfied face. Ran Jixien frowned so much that he could kill a fly. He didn't know how many times he said in his heart, what a disgrace. Wang couldn't help but smile and stand up. This child. How old is she? How can she still be so noisy? Mother. The door curtain embroidered with dark peony patterns was lifted. Shi Yumei rushed into Wang's arms like a gust of wind and hugged her tightly. She rubbed her cheek in Wang's arms and smiled intimately. Mother, I missed you so much. Look at you. Wang smiled and patted her back gently. She smiled and said, how old are you? How can you be so impudent? Hurry up and sit down properly for me. Shi Yumei giggled and helped her mother to sit. Mother, I can't be filial to you. I will kowtow to you to show my filial piety. As she spoke, she took a few steps back. She didn't wait for the maidservants to bring her a brocade cushion. She directly knelt on the dark red Persian carpet, which was embroidered with tangled branches. She took the opportunity to give her husband a meaningful glance. Ran Jixien saw that his mother-in-law was talking, laughing, hugging his wife without any manners. More importantly, they didn't even greet him. He was already dissatisfied, so he stood to the side silently and pretended that he didn't see his wife's eyes. He thought to himself, "Why didn't you think of me just now? Oh, you thought of me when you were about to kowtow? All merchants are treacherous. All merchants are treacherous. Your whole family is indeed treacherous. Besides, I'm a pure and clean scholar. I don't even need to kneel before the county magistrate. Why should I kneel before an old lady who stinks of money? There's no need for that." Wang had already asked Xiu Chun and the others to help Shi Yumei up. She smiled and said, "This child. Filial piety wasn't about that either. Get up, sit down and talk. Quickly invite eldest young master to sit down as well. Son-in-law, please sit down." Shi Yumei was so angry that she couldn't speak, but she couldn't do anything in front of her mother. In the end, she kowtowed 3 times to Wang before standing up and sitting down with a smile. Ran Jixien dared to pretend that he didn't see her eyes, but Cui Zhu didn't dare. She also knelt behind her and kowtowed, then climbed up and stood behind her obediently. Son-in-law greets mother-in-law. Ran Jixien stepped forward, brushed his sleeves, and bowed to Wang. "Son-in-law, there's no need to be so courteous. Quickly sit, quickly sit." Wang smiled and raised her hand. "Yes, thank you, mother-in-law." Ran Jixian's face was solemn. He cupped his hands and bowed to thank her. Then, he brushed his clothes, straightened his back, and strode to his seat. He lifted his robe with both hands and sat down properly. Then, he put down his robe in what he thought was an elegant and decent manner. "I'll let you see what real rules are. It's not just some random kowtowing that's called rules." Ran Jixien sneered in his heart. Madame Wang and the other maidservants were stunned when they saw him sitting there with a serious expression. The maidservants bit their lips and wanted to laugh but didn't dare to. Even Nanny Jiang secretly despised him. They were all scholars, but why was there such a big difference between them? The originally lively atmosphere was disturbed by Ran Jixien. Even Wang felt unnatural. She forced a smile and said to Ran Jixien, "Eldest young master and eldest young mistress are here. Why don't you celebrate the festival in our residence? It's a good opportunity for us to reunite as a family." Ran Jixian's parents passed away a few years ago. He was the only son. Now, his family only had him, Shi Yumei, and his concubine Cui Zhu. "Sorry for disturbing mother-in-law." Ran Jixien cupped his hands with a serious face. He, eldest young master is too polite. We're all family." Wang smiled and ordered Mother Jiang to arrange a guest room. She then asked Shi Yumei, "Did you bring any luggage?" Shi Yumei said, "I brought some clothes. They're still on the second gate. Don't forget to ask someone to get them." Wang then ordered Mother Jiang and said, "See if there's anything that needs to be arranged. Don't forget to arrange it for eldest young mistress and eldest young master." Mother Jiang agreed and went to give the order. "You must be tired from the journey. Do you want to rest first? I'll call you when it's time for dinner." Wang suddenly patted her head and said with a smile, "I was so happy that I forgot about Wan Yang. Quickly, ask someone to invite Wan Yang and third young mistress here. Tell them that her eldest sister is back. Wan Yang is your younger brother's wife. You haven't seen her yet, right? It's a good opportunity to meet her." Wang smiled intimately at her daughter. Wang didn't know that her daughter and Sang Wan were at odds the moment they entered the household. She snorted and said, "Wan Yang? That little girl from the Sang family? It seems that mother likes her a lot." "What little girl?" "That's your younger brother's wife." Wang said angrily, "Wan Yang has a gentle temperament and treats people well. She's a very good person. You two can get along well with each other." "Oh right, if you need anything, just ask someone to tell her." In the past, Shi Yumei disliked and disapproved of this marriage. She always felt that the Sang family was taking advantage of the Shi family. Who would have thought that after Sang Wan married into the family, such a thing would happen the moment she returned home? She felt even more disgusted with Sang Wan. She said disdainfully, "I won't tell her. I can only tell my mother what I want." "You are." Wang Shi helplessly chuckled and shook her head. She said, "It's fine here, but don't speak nonsense outside of this courtyard. Sang Wan is now in charge of the family. It's not good if others hear you talking about her like that." Shi Yumei almost jumped up when she heard that. "Mother, what did you say? She's now in charge of the household? Then what about cousin Fengzi?" Gu Fengzi had always flattered her, so of course she would stand on the same side as her. "Why are you making such a fuss?" Wang's good temper was almost exhausted. She patted her chest and glared at Shi Yumei. "She's your younger brother's wife. Isn't it normal for her to be in charge of the household? Not to mention that Fengzi is still in mourning. Even if she is, we can't just leave the main wife and let a concubine be in charge of the household." Wang sighed softly. This was where she felt the most sorry towards Gu Fengzi. However, Fengzi had vowed that she was willing to be a concubine. She said that as long as she could stay by her aunt's side and her big cousin's side, she would be satisfied. Thus, there was no reason for her not to agree. "Mother." Shi Yumei became anxious and blurted out, "Even if cousin Fengzi isn't in charge of the household, you can't just hand it over to the Sang family. You're still young, so why don't you hold it in your hands? With the stewards' wives below and the stewards outside, who would dare to deceive you? With the Sang family in such a dilapidated state, how could you let her be in charge? Humph, who knows, she might even move our Shi family's belongings to her maiden home." "Don't spout nonsense." Wang frowned and said, "Wan Yong isn't that kind of person. I can see that the Sang family's 2 uncles and eldest sister-in-law are quite good people." As she said that, she scolded her, "You are, why is your temper still like this? Remember, you mustn't speak nonsense in front of your younger brother and sister-in-law. Do you hear me?" The more Shi Yumei listened, the angrier she got. She couldn't help but exclaim, "Mother, you're just protecting her." A married daughter is like spilled water. I'm your biological daughter, the real Missy of the Shi family. Now that I've returned to my own home, I still have to look at the face of an outsider. Why are you getting more and more unreasonable? What outsider? She's your sister-in-law. Yes, I was wrong. I'm the outsider. She's your relative. Closer than your biological daughter. Shi Yumei said angrily, "You can continue to dote on her. When she empties this house one day, you'll know whether I'm right or not." Look at you." Wang choked on Shi Yumei's words. Seeing this, Nanny Jiang quickly smoothed things over with a smile. "Old mistress, our eldest sister-in-law is just outspoken and short-tempered. She's the kindest. Old slave, if I may say something, it's better for the 2 of you to talk things out. Why do you have to hurt your relationship like this? Eldest sister-in-law, old mistress dotes on you the most. When does she not think about you? What don't you know?" Wang sighed and her expression softened. Shi Yumei's heart also softened. She went forward to hold Wang's arm and said with a smile, "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have made Mother angry the moment I came back. Mother, please don't be calculative with me. Let's not talk about this anymore. It's not worth hurting our family over such irrelevant matters." "That's right. Watch your mouth." Wang glared at her and poked her cheek with her finger. The mother and daughter looked at each other and smiled. "Mother, then I'll go back to my room with Master to rest first." Shi Yumei saw that Ran Jixian's expression was getting more and more impatient, so she quickly said with a smile. She knew her husband's temper very well. When he lost his temper, he didn't care about the time and place. "And go." "Hey, wait." Wang had just nodded when she hurriedly stopped her. "I've already sent someone to invite Wan Yang and Third Lass. You can go after seeing them." Then she couldn't be bothered to wait. Shi Yumei snorted. She pulled her husband out and said, "I'm so tired. I don't want to wait anymore. Anyway, I have to stay at home for a few days. It's not like I can't see them. This child." Wang moved her lips and could only let her go. Chapter 81. Old Mistress. In the blink of an eye, Cui Zhu ran back and whispered, "Our old mistress and old mistress haven't had lunch yet." Old mistress said to have lunch sent over. Wang was stunned and subconsciously looked at the Western clock on the wall. For a moment, she was both distressed and angry. She frowned and said, "What kind of life is this?" She waved her hand and ordered Cui Zhu to leave before instructing a servant, "Quickly tell the kitchen to prepare a few dishes that eldest Missy likes to eat and send them over." After a while, Shi Lian came over. Wang was feeling distressed for her biological daughter and did not have the time to bother with her. After a few words, she ordered her to leave first. Shi Lian did not say much and left obediently. After Shi Lian left, Sang Wan came over. Seeing that her mother-in-law Wang was alone in the hall, she greeted her with a smile. "Mother, didn't you say that eldest sister is back? Why don't I see her?" "Oh," Wang smiled and said, "she's tired after a day of traveling and has gone to rest. You can go and do your work. It won't be too late to see her again tonight." "All right, tell the kitchen to prepare a few more dishes. Come over for dinner tonight. And Fengju, tell someone to tell him to come back early tonight." "Yes, mother." Sang Wan smiled and agreed. She asked again, "What dishes do eldest sister and brother-in-law like to eat? Can I instruct the kitchen to prepare them?" Seeing that Sang Wan was thinking about her daughter, Wang was very happy and said with a smile, "The sisters-in-law in the kitchen know. You just have to instruct them. Go." "Yes, then I'll take my leave first." Sang Wan did not ask any more and left with a smile. Although she rushed over and did not see Shi Yumei, if it was in the past, Sang Wan would have paid more attention. Since she had already sent someone to call her over, no matter how tired Shi Yumei was, shouldn't she greet her before going to rest? But Sang Wan felt that it was most likely her mother-in-law's idea. Her mother-in-law had never done things in a proper way. She had asked her to come over to meet someone while sending her daughter to rest. She believed that her mother-in-law was capable of doing such a thing. Therefore, Sang Wan never thought that Shi Yumei was deliberately trying to make things difficult for her. She was confused for a moment. However, Mama Li didn't mention it when she went out to send the gifts today, so Sang Wan didn't take it to heart. "Your family doesn't seem to welcome us. I think we should stay here for the night and leave tomorrow." In the guest room, Ran Jixien, who felt that he was not valued and respected, said angrily to his wife with a cold face, "Go back." Shi Yumei sneered. "Where else can I go? If you have somewhere to go, you can go by yourself." "I'm not going anywhere." "You." "Ridiculous." Ran Jixien snorted coldly and flicked his sleeves, but the imposing manner in his voice had almost disappeared. After a while, the dishes were served. Shi Yumei happily picked up the chopsticks and said, "Ah, my mother loves me so much. These are all my favorite dishes." She praised, "Well, it's delicious. I haven't eaten such authentic drunken chicken in a long time." Ran Jixien looked at the dishes. Braised prawns, 8 treasure tofu, drunken chicken, fried eel shredded, and a big bowl of fragrant Westlake beef soup sprinkled with coriander. They were all his wife's favorite dishes. However, there was none of his favorite dishes, such as bacon, steamed fish, fresh bamboo shoots, etc. Ran Jixien couldn't help but snort with a cold face. He was secretly sulking. "Hey, master, come over and eat. The dishes won't taste good when they get cold." Shi Yumei raised her head and said. Ran Jixien really wanted to sulk and not eat, but when he smelled the ultimate temptation of the food, the hunger in his stomach burned like a prairie fire, burning until his stomach was hollowed out. He had no choice but to endure it without any backbone and eat with a straight face. Sang Wan instructed the kitchen and sent someone to inform Shi Fengju. After assigning the tasks at hand, she began to think about what to wear for the evening. Although her elder sister and brother-in-law weren't outsiders, they were still guests. Her mother-in-law was the most dignified, so Sang-won didn't dare to neglect them. However, she also felt that it wasn't appropriate to dress too solemnly since they were close relatives. That would make her seem like an outsider. Therefore, she put a lot of thought into the clothes. After Mama Lee came back, Sang-won let her have a look at the clothes she had chosen. It was a half-new autumn fragrance color with a golden-red floral pattern on the front of the bright satin jacket, an orange-red edged yellow skirt with pure gold and emerald jewelry, and the finale was a golden buyao with a bird head holding a pearl. This is good. Our eldest daughter isn't an outsider. Mama Lee nodded and smiled. Then this is it. Sang-won was relieved and hurriedly changed her clothes, washed her face, and combed her hair. Shi Fengju, who had just finished tidying up, came back. When he saw Sang-won, his eyes lit up and he couldn't hide the admiration in his eyes. She was outstanding in both appearance and temperament. After dressing up a little, she was so radiant that people couldn't take their eyes off her. When the maidservants saw their eldest young master like this, they couldn't help but cover their mouths and secretly laugh. Sang-won was a little embarrassed and couldn't help but be angry at Shi Fengju for not knowing the time and place. Seeing that he was still in a daze and didn't have the slightest self-awareness, she forced a smile and asked, "Elder sister and brother-in-law are back. Is my dress acceptable?" "Very good," Shi Fengju said without thinking. He then said, "Where's the mutton-fat white jade hairpin I gave you? You look better wearing that." Sang-won was startled. Luya had already cleverly ran to get the hairpin. "Is that so?" Sang-won smiled. Since her husband had said so, she could only obediently wear it. Eldest young master has good taste. This mutton-fat white jade hairpin really suits eldest young mistress. Mama Lee praised with a smile. Everyone laughed and agreed. Sang-won's face turned red. She smiled and said, "Mama, you're making fun of me again. Quickly get some water for eldest young master to wash his face and help him change his clothes. We have to hurry over." Thus, Mama Lee and the others hurriedly served her. The couple finished tidying up and went out together. On the road, Shi Fengju inadvertently turned his head and gave a look. Luya and the others tactfully slowed down and distanced themselves from the two. "Wan Yang," Shi Fengju leaned close to Sang-won and said softly, "My eldest sister is outspoken and doesn't mean anything. If she says anything, don't take it to heart." Sang-won was stunned. She looked up at Shi Fengju and saw him subconsciously avoiding her gaze. Sang-won understood. This was most likely another person who felt that this marriage was unsuitable and that he had climbed up the social ladder. "I know," Sang-won smiled faintly. "We're all family. No matter what eldest sister says, I won't take it to heart." "That's good. Let's go." Shi Fengju felt relieved and smiled. When the two of them arrived, Shi Yumei and Ran Jixian were already there. Second younger brother. You're finally here." Shi Yumei smiled and went forward to pull Shi Fengju's arm. She looked him up and down. "You're still the same. But you're much calmer than before. Eldest sister. Brother-in-law." Shi Fengju was also happy. He talked and laughed with Shi Yumei. To be honest, this sister really loved and protected him. When they were young, no matter who dared to bully him, she would always be the first to stand up and help him. Her principle was that she didn't care who was right or wrong. There was no way she would bully her younger brother. Therefore, the relationship between Shi Fengju and her had always been very good. "If you ask me, you should have come long ago when I arrived. Why are you so late today? What's wrong? Are you estranged from me now?" Shi Yumei looked at Sang-won. Not only was her back beautiful, but her appearance was also outstanding. She couldn't help but feel jealous. "Eldest sister, what are you talking about? Didn't I just come back from the business?" Shi Fengju smiled and continued, "Even if I'm estranged from anyone, I can't be estranged from big sister. Eldest sister loves us brothers the most since we were young. Brat, you still have some conscience." Shi Yumei sneered. "Wan Yang, come here." This is eldest sister and eldest brother-in-law. Shi Fengju introduced Sang Wan to Shi Yumei and Ran Jixian. Ran Jixian's eyes were subconsciously attracted to Sang Wan since she came in. With just one glance, he couldn't help but think of the beautiful back he saw when he entered the residence. Without asking, he was sure that this woman was the one he saw before. She was full of literary talent. It was a pity that such a beautiful woman was married to Shi Fengju, who stank of money. It was really a beautiful flower stuck in cow dung. Ran Jixian couldn't help but sigh in his heart. His face was full of regret. Eldest sister. Brother-in-law. Sang Wan went forward and curtsied. Shi Yumei first glanced at her husband and then looked at Sang Wan. She looked her up and down and smiled. This is my younger sister-in-law from the Sang family? What a beautiful appearance. If you ask me, our Shi family is still the best. Look at how my younger sister-in-law is dressed. Hee, she's even more impressive than the madams and young ladies in Qingzhou. The smile on Sang Wan's face froze. She tactfully pretended not to hear. Shi Yumei wasn't Madame Zhuang. Although she had never met Shi Yumei in her previous life, she knew that Shi Yumei was her mother-in-law Wang's favorite daughter. She was also the sister that her husband, Shi Fengju, liked. Sister-in-law. Ran Jixian nodded at Sang Wan and smiled politely. He looked at Sang Wan with sparkling eyes, trying to find some sympathy in Sang Wan's eyes. He wanted to form an alliance with her. In his opinion, they should have a common language. They both came from a scholarly family, both studied, and both were weak in the Shi family. Unexpectedly, Ran Jixian found that Sang Wan didn't notice him at all. She didn't even look at him. He was disappointed. He suddenly felt dull. He thought to himself, she looks so beautiful and smart, but she's just an embroidered pillow and a bag of grass. If Sang Wan knew that this couple had such twisted thoughts about her, she wouldn't know whether to laugh or cry. Hee, sister, brother-in-law, let's sit down and talk. Shi Fengju coughed and greeted them with a smile. Shi Yumei and Ran Jixian sat down. Shi Fengju also sat down with Sang Wan. Wang looked at Sang Wan and smiled. Just as she was about to ask her how dinner was, Shi Yumei said, "Oh, when did our Shi family become so unruly? As a daughter-in-law, you actually have a seat in front of your mother-in-law? Is this the upbringing of the Sang family? Or is it that you scholars have different rules?" She then turned to her husband and said, "When my mother-in-law was here, I didn't seem to be so unruly." Chapter 82. Etiquette cannot be neglected and filial piety cannot be disregarded. Sister-in-law's actions are indeed inappropriate. Brother-in-law should be taught. Ran Jixian also said seriously. He was even more disappointed with Sang Wan in his heart. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Why is it so difficult to find a like-minded person in this world? It's my fault. I was careless. Sang Wan quickly stood up. Wan Nyang. Shi Fengju couldn't help but be secretly angry. He coldly glanced at Ran Jixian. He had never thought highly of this sanctimonious and pedantic brother-in-law of his. If he was a man, he wouldn't have squandered all of his family's property and sold off his wife's dowry and taken it for granted. What was even more infuriating was that his eldest sister's 4 maidservants, except for Cui Zhu, were all taken in by him within a year of marriage. Later on, he couldn't live on and had to sell the other 3 maidservants. He only kept Cui Zhu, who was now a married woman. It was fine if his eldest sister said a few words to his wife, but why should he say anything? If he was really someone who understood etiquette, how could he not know how to avoid suspicion? Was his brother-in-law's wife someone he could talk about? Shi Fengju grabbed Sang Wan's hand and pulled her to sit down. "We're all family. There's no need for so many rules. When did eldest sister come up with so many rules?" Shi Fengju said lightly with a smile. He secretly squeezed Sang Wan's hand to comfort her. "That's right, Yumei. You misunderstood Wan Nyang." Wang said with a smile, "Your sister-in-law understands etiquette. I think she's too polite. We're a family, so we can't be so estranged." Hee, It's not easy for her to relax in front of me. Now that you've said that, who knows how restrained she'll be. Wan Yang, your eldest sister is just saying that. Don't think too much. Hee, sit down. Alright, how's dinner preparation? Mama Lee is watching over there. I think it will be done in a while. Sang Wan replied with a smile, gratefully smiling at her mother-in-law. That's right, I'm just saying. Sister-in-law, don't mind it. Hee, you're really lucky. My mother and brother are so protective of you. When Shi Yumei saw her mother and younger brother speaking up for Sang Wan, she became even more unhappy. However, she could feel her younger brother's anger and did not wish to continue. She swept her eyes around and smiled. Why don't I see Cousin Fengzi? Second brother, what is Cousin Fengzi doing? Why didn't she come to see me even after hearing that I'm back? Shi Fengju's heart skipped a beat, and he subconsciously glanced at Sang Wan. When Shi Yumei saw his glance, she felt even more indignant. She thought to herself, well done, how long has it been since you married into my family? How can you control my younger brother to this extent? What would happen if she gave birth to a son in the future? Sang Wan's face was calm, and she did not even raise her eyebrows. However, she was secretly complaining in her heart. Shi Fengju's glance and Shi Yumei's indignant and displeased expression were all in her eyes. She thought to herself, is there anyone more innocent than me in this world? Young master, your sister is asking you a question, why are you looking at me for? What does your Fengzi do have to do with me? Unfortunately, she went to the temple yesterday to pray for the blessings of my uncle. She will only be back tomorrow. When she returns, she will naturally come to see you. Shi Fengju forced a smile. So that's how it is. Like I said, Fengzi is a very good person. She will definitely come to see me. Shi Yumei chuckled. As she spoke, she began to praise Gu Fengzi and Fengzi, talking about their past. Wang Shi was already old and loved to talk about the past. However, Sang Wan, who was at the side, could not get a word in and could only sit by the side. No matter how Shi Fengju listened to it, he felt that it was uncomfortable and irritating, but he did not want to listen. Finally, he could not bear it any longer and found a chance to interrupt. He smiled faintly at Ran Jixien and asked, "That's right. Didn't elder brother-in-law say that you are going to Hangzhou to participate in the provincial examination this year? How come?" He remembered that when he got married, elder sister had asked someone to tell him that she would stay at home to help her husband study so that he could participate in this year's provincial examination. Therefore, she would not be attending his wedding. Ran Jixian's expression changed slightly, but he immediately calmed down. He coughed and said somewhat unnaturally, that this year is unlucky. It's not suitable for me to travel. Not suitable. Next time is just right. When Shi Yumei heard Shi Fengju mention this matter, she could not help but get angry. Unlucky year, it was indeed unlucky. However, it was not him but her. He spent all his traveling expenses and took it to the brothel to invite those scholars to drink with prostitutes, but he still insisted that she was not allowed to go back to her maternal family to borrow money. In fact, she also knew that when he said that she was not allowed to borrow money, it was not really that she was not allowed to borrow money, but that she was not allowed to tell her maternal family the real reason for borrowing money. This was not a big deal. In any case, her maternal family had plenty of money, and her mother and brother had always doted on her. She could casually find an excuse and get a few hundred taels from her mother without a problem. The problem was that when he got drunk, he fell into a ditch and sprained his ankle, which took more than a month to recover. By the time he recovered, the registration time had already passed. Shi Yumei suddenly became depressed and was not in the mood to talk about other people's shortcomings. She forced a smile and said, That's right. The fortune-teller said that our master is not suitable to travel far this year, and the southeast is even more dangerous. This provincial examination is only held once every 3 years. If we miss it this time, we can always try again. This is not a big deal. As long as we have real talent, we don't have to worry about not being able to obtain scholarly honors. That's true. Scholarly honors are important, but our lives are even more important. We can just take the examination next time." Wang also smiled. "Hee hee. Then this brother wishes elder brother-in-law success in passing the imperial examination." Shi Fengju slightly raised his eyebrows and cupped his hands towards Ran Jixuan. "Hee hee, many thanks, younger brother. When the time comes, I will definitely invite younger brother-in-law over for a few drinks." Ran Jixuan's awkwardness from before was swept away. With a radiant smile, he cupped his hands towards Shi Fengju. It was as if as long as he willed it, he would be able to hold a provincial official in his hands. Shi Fengju sneered in his heart. "If someone like you can pass the provincial examination, then a high-ranking official is really not worth anything." As they were talking, Mama Li came in. She had to greet eldest Missy and eldest brother-in-law. She reported that dinner was ready, so everyone went to the dining room together. Everyone got up, but Shi Lian was a little hesitant. Although she was an unmarried lady and it was not appropriate for her to eat at the same table as her brother-in-law, the Shi family had never been particular about such things. In the past, when relatives came over, they did not mind. However, Shi Lian knew her brother-in-law's character well. She was afraid that he would say something that would embarrass her, so she smiled and said, "Mother, second brother, big sister, my stomach has been feeling a little uncomfortable these 2 days, so." Wang did not have any interest in mistreating a daughter who was not her own, nor did she have any interest in treating her as her own. Moreover, Shi Lian was a quiet person who did not speak much. She did not like her in front of her, so she casually said, "Then you can go back. Tell the kitchen to prepare something light. If you still feel uncomfortable, go back to your sister-in-law and ask someone to invite a doctor." "Yes, thank you for your concern, mother." Shi Lian hurriedly bowed and ran out of the room. While everyone was seated, Sang Wan did not sit down. She was busy ordering the servants to serve the dishes and personally arrange the bowls, chopsticks, and spoons for Wang. Then, she stood behind Wang and asked someone to bring clean chopsticks and plates for her mother-in-law. Since her sister-in-law had already spoken, she had to draw inferences about other things. Shi Yumei was secretly satisfied with the situation and thought to herself, "See if I can't control you." Ran Jixuan looked at the table full of dishes and could not help but frown. This was because there was nothing on the table that he liked the most. Even the fish was braised and not steamed. Ran Jixuan could not help but feel indignant. The Shi family was too much. "These dishes are too greasy. It's not good to eat too much fish and meat. You should make it lighter to maintain your health." Ran Jixuan could not help but say. His face was already very serious, as if someone owed him a few hundred silvers. Now that he said those words, it sounded even more impolite in the ears of others. This banquet was arranged by Sang Wan. Sang Wan was embarrassed and quickly smiled. "I really don't know brother-in-law's taste, please forgive me for my carelessness. I'll ask the kitchen to make a few light dishes." "You don't know your brother-in-law's taste?" Shi Yumei smiled and said, "If you don't know, then don't know. Why do you want to know more? Sister-in-law, you're worrying too much. You just have to take care of my second brother. You don't have to worry about other people." Sang Wan's face flushed red and she stood there, not knowing what to do. "Yumei, how can you speak like that?" Wang frowned. Shi Fengju was also annoyed and smiled faintly. "Big sister, Wan Yang has good intentions. Look at what you're saying. Mama Li, go and ask the kitchen to make a stir-fried cabbage and a stir-fried radish. Remember, they must be light and less oil and salt. Brother-in-law, do you think this will work? I remember the last time I went to your house, brother-in-law was especially fond of these 2 dishes. He even said that the radish and cabbage were good things. I've always remembered that brother-in-law likes to eat these." Fengju's memory is really good. Ran Jixuan was embarrassed for a moment. When Shi Fengju went to their house, he purposely ordered the servants to prepare such bland dishes for him. He thought that Shi Fengju, who grew up in a wealthy family, would find such food hard to swallow. At that time, he would take the opportunity to use his status as a brother-in-law to teach him how to be diligent and thrifty so that he could win Shi Fengju's respect and make him see him in a new light. because he felt that the only thing in their family that was comparable to the Shi family was their spirit of enduring hardship. Who knew that Shi Fengju would not give him a chance to show off and finish the meal without a hitch. And today, he even used it to criticize him. There was a small kitchen in the courtyard with fresh ingredients ready at any time. The kitchen was also very nimble. Soon, 2 plates of stir-fried vegetables were served. Serve them to brother-in-law. All right, let's eat. Otherwise, the dishes will turn cold. Shi Fengju chuckled and raised his hand to make an inviting gesture. Seeing that his big sister seemed to have something to say, he continued with a smile, "Xiu Li, quickly pick up some shredded bamboo shoots with chicken and scallops. Big sister, this is your favorite. You're still the one who remembers me, second brother." Shi Yumei immediately replied with a smile and began eating in satisfaction. Chapter 83. Mother, let Wan Nyong sit down. Xiu Chun is enough to serve her. We don't usually pay attention to this when we have relatives and guests. Big sister and brother-in-law are not outsiders, so why are there so many rules? Shi Fengju picked up a piece of braised mutton with his chopsticks and said calmly. When Wang Shi heard that, she subconsciously turned her head, and only then did she realize that Sang Wan was standing beside her serving her. She let out an ayah and laughed. You're such an honest child. Your big sister only said it casually and you took it seriously. Come, sit down. Sit down. Then, thank you, mother. Sang Wan glanced at Shi Yumei. Seeing that she did not say anything, she smiled and bowed slightly to thank her. Then, she passed the chopsticks and plates in her hands to Xiu Chun and sat down next to Shi Fengju. Shi Yumei could not say anything more, of course. If she did, it would seem that she, the eldest daughter of the Shi family, was more distant than her relatives and friends. Moreover, at this moment, most of the dishes on the table were her favorite delicacies. Obviously, they were more attractive to her than fighting with her sister-in-law. When she was happy, she could not be bothered to be calculative. Shi Yumei's personality was very lively, and she had a lot to talk about with her mother and younger brother. Throughout the meal, they chatted and laughed non-stop, and they ate to their heart's content. Shi Fengju even specially asked someone to warm up a pot of 3-year-old chrysanthemum wine. The amber wine was served in a green jade cup, and the fragrance was rich and fragrant. When Shi Yumei saw it, she became even happier and enjoyed the meal to her heart's content. Ran Jixien, on the other hand, was the only one who was firmly trapped by his own words about nourishing one's body. After being defeated by Shi Fengju with just a few words, Ran Jixien could not bring himself to slap himself in the face and silently ate the radish and cabbage in front of him. Looking at the table full of delicious dishes and smelling the fragrance that constantly wafted into his nose, Ran Jixien could only make use of swallowing a few mouthfuls of saliva. However, although the Shi family's stir-fried cabbage and stir-fried radish were stir-fried, there was enough oil and the cooking skills of the kitchen staff were good. It tasted 100 times better than what he ate at home and had a special freshness to it. How could he have known that the cook had added stock and straw mushroom seafood sauce to make it? It did taste better, but it also made him feel even more hungry. His eyes subconsciously looked at the table again. After the meal, everyone sat in the parlor and chatted. Wang and Shi Fengju hadn't seen Shi Yumei for more than a year. The mother, son, and daughter were chatting happily. Just as they were in high spirits, Ran Jixien cleared his throat and coughed. He insisted on going back to rest. Wang thought that they must be tired from the journey and should go back to rest, so she hurriedly asked someone to send them back. Shi Fengju, however, glanced at Ran Jixien, who was sitting upright and still. He was a little unhappy. This person was clearly trying to dampen everyone's spirits. He really didn't know what kind of mentality he was in. Mother, we'll accompany you again tomorrow. Shi Yumei smiled and got up. Cough, cough. Ran Jixien heard Shi Yumei's words and coughed heavily again. He secretly winked at her while coughing. Shi Fengju couldn't help but be startled. He quietly watched from the side. Shi Yumei's expression froze for a moment before she suddenly came back to her senses. She turned around and held Wang's arm with a smile. Mother, I'll sleep with you tonight. I want to accompany you. Wang looked at Ran Jixien to ask for his opinion, but Ran Jixian's eyes were looking ahead as if he didn't see anything. It's fine, it's fine. Mother, it's settled then. I'll stay with you. Sure, you may smiled. That's good, that's good. Mother can't ask for more. Wang smiled and patted the back of her hand intimately. Cui Zhu, let's go. Ran Jixien raised his head and called out to Cui Zhu. Wang's expression changed slightly. Shi Fengju's eyes sharpened. How could he bully people like this? On the first day he went to his mother-in-law's house, in front of his mother-in-law, his brother-in-law, and his first wife, he openly called over the Tong Fong maidservant. Moreover, this Tong Fong maidservant was his wife's dowry and was the only person who served his wife at this time. Shi Fengju was about to speak when he heard his sister glare at Cui Zhu and shout, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up!" She shut her mouth in annoyance and watched Ran Jixien walk away with Cui Zhu. It's not that I want to say this. Wang was annoyed. Mother. Sure, you may said coquettishly. Aren't all men like this? She's just a servant girl, what's wrong with her? Since her daughter said so, what else could she do as a mother? We'll go back first. Shi Fengju suppressed his anger and walked out with Sang Wan. As her younger brother, it was even more inappropriate for him to interfere with his sister's matters. Shi Fengju's expression was not good. Sang Wan didn't say anything, but she agreed with Shi Yumei's words. Men are all like this. Seeing Shi Fengju angry, she couldn't help but think, what's there for you to be angry about? You're also a man, and the things you do might not be much better than your brother-in-law. Unfortunately, I, Sang Wan, don't have a family that is strong enough to support me. I didn't expect my brother-in-law to be so overbearing. How could my elder sister bear it? Shi Fengju finally opened his mouth angrily after they returned to Ning Garden and sat down in the warm room. Sang Wan took the hot tea from Luya and handed it to Shi Fengju. She smiled faintly and said, "If you marry a chicken, follow the chicken. If you marry a dog, follow the dog. What else can a woman do other than bear it? I think it's good that my elder sister is so open-minded and open-minded. At least she won't make things difficult for herself, and her life will be easier." Shi Fengju was startled. He didn't expect her to say this. As he listened, he felt that there was a hidden meaning in her words. He put down the teacup in his hand and dismissed the servant girl. He smiled and said, "Wan Yang, are you angry with me?" "What are you thinking?" Sang Wan blushed. She felt that she had misspoken and hurriedly said with a smile, We're different from them, aren't we?" "Of course we're different, Shi Fengju's smile suddenly froze. Obviously, what he understood at the beginning was different from what Sang Wan had said. He only realized it now. What he meant was that he and Ran Jixien were not the same kind of people, but what Sang Wan meant was that they were just a fake couple. Shi Fengju's depressed mood suddenly became worse. He looked at Sang Wan and couldn't say anything. He wanted to say, "Wan Yang, I regret it, I really regret it. Our agreement is invalid. Can you stay and be my wife in name?" But he knew that he couldn't say it. His intuition told him that Sang Wan wouldn't agree. "I'm not my elder sister's husband. We're different from them." Shi Fengju stared deeply at Sang Wan, stood up and said with a smile, "You must be tired these days, right? You should rest early. My elder sister and elder sister's husband have to stay in the manor for a few more days. I'm afraid you'll be busy. My elder sister doesn't have it easy either. Be patient and take care of her. I'll thank you properly later." Sang Wan saw that he was serious and giggled. Very good, at least he knew that she was busy and knew how to thank her. "Don't worry, I will. No matter what, I won't let the eldest daughter of the Shi family be wronged in my own home. But I don't know your elder sister's temperament. If there's anything that doesn't go her way, you'll have to help me explain it to her. I'll accept any apology." Sang Wan felt that Shi Yumei's hostility towards her was deeper than Shi Fengju's, the victim himself. Moreover, she was a person who would say anything without holding back. She was also the eldest daughter of the Shi family. With just a few words, she didn't even have the chance to talk back. So, it was necessary to take precautions. If she's angry, you can tell me. I won't let you be wronged. Shi Fengju saw that she was willing to rely on him and felt happy. The two of them didn't talk about it anymore. In the main courtyard, Shi Yumei and her mother Wang laid down on the bed and talked for half the night before falling asleep. The most important reason why she stayed to sleep with her mother tonight was to talk to her. The next morning, Shi Fengju and Sang Wan had just woken up when they saw Xiao Chun, who had been waiting outside Ning Garden, enter. Shi Fengju and Sang Wan were shocked and quickly asked what was the matter. It's nothing to do with young mistress, Xiao Chun quickly smiled and said. Old mistress said to ask young master not to go to the business first and to go there after you're done washing up. Young mistress doesn't have to go over to greet today. You can just prepare for the festival. Hearing that it had nothing to do with her, Sang Wan was relieved. Shi Fengju nodded and said, Go back and tell mother that I'll go over now. As he spoke, he hurriedly ordered the servants to help him wash up and get dressed. Mother usually didn't wake up so early, so she must have something important to say. Sang Wan stopped Xiao Chun. Go back and tell old mistress that I'll have someone send young master's breakfast over later. Yesterday, I already told the kitchen to prepare a few dishes that eldest missy and young master like. Someone will send it over later. Yes, young mistress. Xiao Chun agreed and turned to leave. Shi Fengju hurried to his mother's side and asked as he sat down, Why didn't mother and eldest sister sleep a little longer? Why did you call me over so early in the morning? How could I sleep? Wang let out a long sigh. She loosely clenched one hand into a fist and lightly punched her chest a few times to calm her breathing. Shi Yumei was wearing a pea-green dress embroidered with chrysanthemums. She sat next to Wang with her hair tied up in a neat bun. Her head was slightly lowered and her complexion wasn't very good. Shi Fengju understood that it most likely had something to do with eldest sister's family. Mother, did something happen to eldest sister's family? Mother, just tell me directly. I'll get someone to deal with it right away. She's my biological sister, not an outsider. Shi Fengju said with a smile. Although he didn't like his brother-in-law, he couldn't just watch his biological sister suffer. It wasn't as if the Shi family couldn't help them. It wasn't a big deal even if they had to support the two of them for a lifetime. Second brother. Shi Yumei raised her head to look at him and called out gratefully. AI. Wang sighed again and said, See which courtyard in the household is convenient and have Wan Nyong arrange for someone to clean it up. Your eldest sister and brother-in-law will be staying with our family from now on. Shi Fengju widened his eyes in surprise. Even though he was prepared to clean up the mess of his unreliable brother-in-law, he still found it unbelievable when he heard this. Chapter 84. Shi Fengju knew that this brother-in-law of his thought highly of himself and thought highly of himself. He looked down on the Shi family for being full of the stench of money. Hearing his mother say that he was actually willing to stay in a house full of the stench of money, Shi Fengju was surprised. Is this big sister's idea or brother-in-law's? Brother-in-law is also willing? Shi Fengju felt that it was better to ask clearly. If it was only big sister's idea, that stubborn brother-in-law of his would blame him for being a busybody. It's our idea. Shi Yumei hurriedly said, Well, it's quiet at home and he can study in peace. Qingzhou is also close to Hangzhou, so it'll be convenient for him to go to Hangzhou for the exam 3 years later. Moreover, our master can also give third brother some guidance. 3 years later, uncle and nephew can go to the exam together and take care of each other on the road. No need. Wang and Shi Fengju said at the same time when they heard that Ran Jixian was going to guide Shi Fenghua. Third brother has a teacher to guide him in the academy. The teacher said that he will have to go to the exam in 2 years, so there's no harm in changing the teacher midway. Moreover, brother-in-law also needs to study, doesn't he? We can't affect him because of third brother. Shi Fengju said. Yes. Your second brother is right. Wang hurriedly agreed. Not to mention that he was worried about letting such an unreliable person guide his younger brother. Shi Fengju had no doubt that if he were to really let him guide his younger brother, and if he were to fail the next exam, he would definitely complain that he did not study well enough and spent so much effort guiding his brother-in-law. Moreover, if Shi Fenghua passed instead, he would definitely say that it was all because of his guidance. Shi Yumei's slightly changed expression after hearing Shi Fengju's explanation. She unconsciously smiled and nodded. That's true. But, is that teacher reliable? Don't delay our Fenghua. Reliable. He's an old Han Lin from the Hanlin Academy who retired from the capital. Wang said quickly. Oh. Shi Yumei replied with a drawn-out, oh, and stopped talking. Obviously, he didn't agree with his mother's words, but he didn't have the confidence to refute. Although she didn't say it, Shi Fengju understood what she meant. He thought to himself, no matter how unreliable he is, he's still more reliable than my brother-in-law. Shi Fengju saw that the topic had gone too far, so he said, I think we should go to Banana Garden. The place is spacious and the environment is quiet and secluded. What do you think, big sister? Banana Garden? Banana Garden. That's fine. Let's go there then. Shi Yumei thought for a while and forced a smile. Banana Garden was located to the south of the Shi family. The main entrance was in the outer courtyard, while the courtyard and the house were in the inner courtyard. There was a small door leading to the inner courtyard, which happened to be on the dividing line between the inner courtyard and the outer courtyard. The nannies who kept watch at night would lock the corner door in the inner residence, which would isolate the inside from the outside. There were 2 courtyards in the garden, one at the front, and the other at the back. There were a total of 5 rooms in the main house and 2 side rooms. The back seat, the back cover, and the east and west wing rooms were all available. There was also a small garden of 1 mu square in the backyard. The garden was piled up with fake mountains, a chiseled pond, and flowers and trees. Although it was small, it was exquisitely decorated. The front courtyard was planted with banana trees, plum blossoms, and bamboos. It was very elegant and quiet, perfect for studying. It was perfect for a grand-aunt like her who had married off and brought her husband back. However, Shi Yumei couldn't help but feel a little melancholy. She originally wanted to stay in the embroidery house that she had before she got married, but now, she felt that the embroidery house was no longer a place she could live in. The Shi family would soon have a new Missy who would be her younger brother's daughter. That should be where the new Missy of the Shi family should live. How could she still live in the inner courtyard with her husband? Shi Yumei felt sad for a moment and couldn't help but feel a little restrained and timid as an outsider. She forced a smile and said, Then I'll have to trouble you, second brother. When Banana Courtyard is ready, we'll move in. We'll eat by ourselves in the future. There's no need to stand on ceremony with your younger brother. Wang couldn't help but feel a little sad when she heard her daughter's words. She thought of how strong her daughter was when she was at home and always wanted to be the best in everything. Who knew that she would meet such an unworthy man? 3 years after she got married, her parents-in-law passed away one after another. It had only been 3 to 4 years since then, but her family's wealth had been completely squandered by her unscrupulous husband. Even her dowry had been completely covered. Seeing her daughter's timid expression, which would have been impossible in the past, showed how difficult it had been for her all these years. Even her temperament had changed. How could her mother not be sad? Wang couldn't help but hold her daughter's hand. Her words were meant for Shi Fengju. I don't think there's a rush. After the 15th of August, let your sister-in-law tidy up Banana Courtyard and choose an auspicious day for you to move in. In the future, if you want to eat anything, just ask the kitchen to send it over. There's no need to stand on ceremony. If you miss your mother, just come over and eat with me. You'll always be the eldest daughter of the Shi family. Whatever you want, just say it. If anyone dares to be arrogant and disrespect your mistress, I'll be the first to not let them off. That's right, big sister. Since you're back, just stay here with peace of mind. You're also father and mother's daughter. You should have a share of the Shi family's business. Shi Fengju also smiled. Shi Yumei's heart relaxed. She quickly thanked her mother and brother with a smile and said to Shi Fengju, "Look at what you're saying. You're the one who's working hard to manage the family business. I didn't do anything at all. Father and mother sent me off grandly and gave me so many good things. The Shi family doesn't mistreat me anymore. This business belongs to you and Fenghua. It has nothing to do with me. If you say that again, I'll be ashamed to death." The three of them burst out laughing. Shi Fengju smiled again and said, "How about this? I'll give big sister and big brother-in-law 20 taels of silver every month for my account in case big sister needs money urgently and inconveniences herself. Also, the decorations in Banana Courtyard can be considered as a token of appreciation from me as a younger brother. Big sister and big brother-in-law just arrived yesterday. I think we should find some time today to visit second uncle and second aunt and greet them. Oh, I've already asked someone to prepare the gifts yesterday. They'll be sent to mother later." After all, Shi Yumei was a married daughter. There was no reason for her to ask for money from her maternal family. Their first branch wouldn't say anything, but the Shi family still had the second branch and the third branch's uncle and aunt who were officials. They couldn't just ignore their feelings. Shi Fengju pondered for a moment. He had to go to second uncle and second aunt's place and explain to them personally. He had to make it clear to them that his big sister and big sister's expenses would be paid by him and not by the family. Shi Yumei was also worried about this. When she heard Shi Fengju's words, she was overjoyed. Wang also laughed and praised her son for his thoughtfulness. Nanny Jiang, who was at the side, resisted the urge to roll her eyes. She thought to herself, "Old mistress, this kind of thing should be handled by you as a mother. The real young master is a rare good person. Old mistress, your fortune is indeed not small. With him handling everything, the old slave doesn't have to remind you. All right, since big sister and big brother-in-law have returned to live here, have the properties and fields in Mengxian been settled? If not, I'll ask the head servant to make a trip there." Shi Fengju felt that it was better to save his energy and not count on his brother-in-law, who loved books so much that he couldn't turn into a bookworm. Yes, let Fengju send someone to do it. Fengju is the most reliable when it comes to handling matters, Wang said with concern, who knew that Shi Yumei's face would suddenly reveal an unnatural expression. She stammered, No need. Before we came, we already settled everything. Really, it's all settled. There's no need to trouble second brother. Really? Shi Fengju looked at her suspiciously and said, That's good. I think I'll ask the head servant to make a trip there. His tone carried a hint of mockery as he said with a smile, After all, big brother-in-law is a scholar. It's inevitable that he won't understand these things. If he were to be cheated, wouldn't he be at a disadvantage? It's better for me to ask the head servant to make a trip there. I think that's the best. Wang nodded. No need. Shi Yumei was so anxious that she almost stood up. Her voice was out of control. She was startled, but she quickly smiled calmly. There's really no need. Mother, second brother is so busy all day. If he were to worry about such a small matter, our master and I would feel bad. We've already settled everything, so there's no need to go through so much trouble. Wang snorted and sighed. What trouble is this? We haven't even talked about the trouble. Mother. Shi Yumei's face became even more awkward and she lowered her head in embarrassment. Mother, big sister, are you hiding something from me? Hurry up and tell me. Shi Fengju glanced at them and added, You know my temper. What he meant was, even if you don't tell me, I can still find out about it in such a small place. Wang quickly said, Isn't this what I wanted to tell you? It's just that, your big brother-in-law owes Guang Wenjai 600 silvers, Hong Tai Restaurant 380 silvers, Rongji Silk Store 240 silvers, and... Enough, mother. Shi Fengju felt a headache and anger when he heard that. He said faintly, Do you have a list of the debts? Give it to me. Oh, it's here. Shi Yumei smiled awkwardly and quickly took it out and handed it to Shi Fengju. A wave of anger rose from his dantian and rushed to his head. Although he was the one who asked, Shi Fengju still felt unbearably angry when he saw these bills that originally belonged to big brother-in-law being taken out from his sister's body. That bastard! Shi Fengju's expression was indifferent as he browsed through the list from the beginning. Hey, good fellow, it's really complete. Clothing, food, housing, transportation, everything was covered. According to this list, one would be able to buy a family property. Something like 5 silvers from so-and-so dessert shop, 3 silvers from so-and-so grocery store. Although this was ridiculous, Shi Fengju was too lazy to get angry. He glared and said with a cold face, "Drunken Flower House, 800 silvers? Drunken Flower House?" Wang's expression also changed. She said with a sullen face, "What's going on? Why didn't you tell me this last night?" Chapter 85. I don't remember so much. Shi Yumei forced a smile and explained, "Mother, second brother, you misunderstood. My master went there with a few friends to recite poems and discuss knowledge. He didn't do anything else and didn't spend the night, really." "You?" Wang was so angry that her liver hurt. "Okay, I know," Shi Fengju nodded. "Mother and big sister, don't worry. I'll ask someone to settle the bill." The total amount was close to 3,000 taels, so it would be taken from his personal account. Shi Fengju thought to himself, "Luckily I have a few private shops outside. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll have to go back and sell things to make up for the loss. This bastard. How did he get such a brother-in-law?" "Big sister," Shi Fengju suddenly laughed, "I think you should tell me the truth. Have you really arranged the property in Mengxian?" Shi Yumei opened her mouth and thought that her brother would send someone to settle the bill in Mengxian anyway. She couldn't hide it from him, so she told him everything. "So, what property did they have in Mengxian?" Even the house was sold by Ran Jixian. The two of them brought Cui Zhu with them and came here to seek shelter with a light pack. Of course, they were also suspected of evading debts. After all, Ran Jixian was a scholar. Every day, he was chased by the workers of various shops and restaurants to collect debts. Wouldn't it be a disgrace if word got out? How could this be? How could this be? Wang was so angry that her facial features were twisted and she couldn't speak. She always knew that her son-in-law was unreliable, but she didn't expect him to be so unreliable. She originally thought that no matter how unreliable he was still a scholar. She thought that when he passed the imperial examinations and became an official, her daughter would be able to live a good life with him. Who knew? "I've sinned, really sinned." Wang Shi wiped away her tears and lamented. She regretted getting married in the first place. How did a person who looked so good become like this today? Shi Yumei couldn't help but shed tears. She lamented about being unfilial, but then she said with tears in her eyes, "Mother, when he becomes a juren or jinshi and becomes an official in the future, he will definitely pay back what he owes us. He will definitely pay it back." It would have been better if Shi Yumei hadn't said that. Now, Wang was even more upset and angry. Even she knew that this was basically impossible. How hateful of this damned girl to be so stubborn. If that day really comes, unless his ancestors' graves emit green smoke. Wang was so angry that the words that came out of her mouth were infuriating. As expected, Shi Yumei couldn't keep her face straight. She couldn't help but cover her face and cry, "It was you who married me to him, and now you're blaming me. Are you sure that he will never amount to anything in his lifetime? If that's the case, why did you marry me to him? How could I? We still have to live like this." Wang and Shi Fengju looked at each other, speechless. Both of them secretly sighed in their hearts. How did he become like this? Shi Fengju thought deeper. He thought that perhaps he had always been this kind of person. It was just that his parents were disciplining him in the past, so he didn't have the right to make decisions. Now his true colors were revealed. But his sister still married him in the end. Wang and Shi Fengju hurriedly comforted Shi Yumei. Wang's heart ached so much that she cried. Shi Yumei couldn't bear to see her mother sad, so she held back her tears. "Big sister, mother was just angry." Don't think too much about it. In the end, isn't Mother just worried about you and worried about you? If it were other unrelated people, who would say a word or two about her? A few thousand taels of silver isn't worth much. I'll do it. Our Shi family doesn't need a bowl of rice for the two of you. You can stay here in peace from now on. Second brother. Shi Yumei thanked him gratefully and apologized to her mother. The storm was finally over. Shi Fengju continued, in the future, if brother-in-law needs anything, just send someone to tell me. I'll get someone to buy it for him. If there's nothing to do, let him study in peace in the household. If he's tired, he can take a walk in the garden to relieve his boredom. The streets outside are complicated, so it's easy to get distracted. This will only do more harm than good to his revision. Big sister, for brother-in-law's sake, you have to keep him in check. Shi Fengju especially emphasized his tone, as if Ran Jixian's future was completely dependent on Shi Yumei's discipline. Shi Yumei couldn't help but feel a heavy responsibility. She immediately nodded and said seriously, "Second brother is right. There are all kinds of people and all kinds of things outside. It's better to study in the household. Don't worry, I'll keep him in check." And I knew big sister was virtuous. Shi Fengju praised with a smile and said, "Our Qingzhou isn't like Mengxian. Merchants usually don't buy on credit. Big sister, you know this as well. If brother-in-law wants to buy something on the streets one day, you can tell someone and I'll go with him. I know almost all the merchants in Qingzhou. When the time comes, they can give me a discount." And that's right. Shi Yumei nodded repeatedly and smiled. "Second brother, you're really good to big sister." "Don't say that. We're close relatives." Shi Fengju smiled. If this bastard went out to buy on credit, not only would they not be able to tolerate his bad habit, the Shi family would also lose face. After sitting for a while, Shi Fengju got up and was about to leave to deal with some matters. At the same time, he ordered someone to clean up this mess. Wang asked him to stay for breakfast, but he didn't have any appetite. He shook his head and said he had an appointment with someone to eat outside. Second brother. Just as he went down the stairs, Shi Yumei quickly caught up with him. She hesitated for a moment and said with a smile, "Second brother, about your brother-in-law's debt, can you not tell anyone? You can go to Mengxian personally to settle it for him." Shi Fengju was stunned. Shi Yumei lowered her head and said embarrassedly, "After all, he's a scholar. If the servants knew about this, it would be embarrassing. He still knows how to save face. If he wanted to save face, he would still do such a thing." Shi Fengju really wanted to ask someone to beat Ran Jixian up to vent his anger. "All right. Let's not be angry." He couldn't afford to be angry. "All right, then I'll go to Mengxian today." Shi Fengju endured and endured. He secretly let out a long sigh of relief and tried his best to smile calmly. "Thank you so much, Fengju." "Fengju." Shi Yumei let out a sigh of relief. "Big sister, tell brother-in-law that this kind of thing will not happen again." Shi Fengju said lightly, Of course. Don't worry, it definitely won't happen again." Shi Yumei quickly nodded her head. "All right." Shi Fengju, who was about to leave, suddenly asked, "Have you moved all of your things here? Including his books, ink, paper, and inkstone?" Shi Yumei smiled and said, "Those things have been given away. He said he wanted to give them to his old friends as a memento." "Well, I have the book list here, so I'll have to trouble you to prepare another set for him later." Shi Fengju was speechless. The 4 treasures of the study from Guang Wenjai were also given away? Guang Wenjai had a large shop in Qingzhou that specialized in selling the 4 treasures of the study, ancient books, and other things used by scholars. The prices were not cheap. A set of the 4 treasures of the study was made with Huzhou brush from Zhejiang Province, Hui ink from Anhui Province, Xian paper from Anhui Province, and inkstone from Duanzhou in Guangdong Province. The most expensive set would cost more than 1,000 silvers, while the cheapest would cost more than 200 silvers. It seems so. In any case, there's nothing left. Sure, you may obviously didn't know anything about the 4 treasures of the study and didn't think it was worth much. If he had known, he wouldn't have asked. Asking made him even angrier. This wastrel. When Shi Fengju returned to Ning Garden, Sang-Wan had just finished her breakfast and was about to go to Lin Qing Pavilion to listen to her daughter-in-law's story. Seeing her husband, who was supposed to be out on business, come back, Sang-Wan couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment. Looking at his face that seemed to be filled with anger, she was even more surprised. "Did you forget something? Why are you back?" Sang-Wan went forward and asked. "Nothing." Shi Fengju sat down and motioned for the maid to pour tea. He looked up at Sang-Wan and said, "Ask someone to tell Chong Huan to prepare the carriage. Help me pack 2 sets of clothes. I'm going out now and will be back tomorrow." "Okay." Sang-Wan nodded and didn't ask any more questions. She hurriedly asked Hong Yi to find Chong Huan and brought Xing Ji into the room to pack his clothes. Shi Fengju asked Luya, "Is there anything else to eat?" "Just get me some." "Why? Didn't you eat at Mother's place?" Sang-Wan turned around and asked Xing Ji to pack his clothes. She then asked Luya to go to the small kitchen and ask the cook to make a bowl of noodles if there was nothing to eat. "There's no need to go through so much trouble. If there's nothing, I'll just eat outside." Shi Fengju's heart warmed. He smiled and thought that his wife was the best. At least she was reliable. "It's all ready-made food, so it's quick to prepare," Sang-Wan said with a smile. "You can eat at home and hurry on your way. It'll save you the trouble." Shi Fengju smiled and didn't say anything else. Shi Fengju didn't mention anything about going out. Sang-Wan was also dealing with matters in the residence as usual. She slightly changed the menu for the Mid-Autumn Festival family banquet and brought it to Wang for review. Wang smiled and agreed. She then ordered someone to bring it to the kitchen and give instructions as usual. In the afternoon, Gu Fengzi came back from the temple. First, she went back to Peony Park to freshen up and change into clean clothes. Gu Fengzi then brought Lan Xiang to the main courtyard to pay respects to Wang. Wang saw that her face was wan and sallow. She didn't wear any makeup and was wearing plain blue clothes. Her hair was casually tied up in a bun without any accessories. She looked more delicate and pitiful than usual. She couldn't help but feel sorry for her, so she comforted her. Gu Fengzi nodded repeatedly as she listened. She tried hard to recall her miserable life and a few drops of tears welled up in her eyes, causing Wang Shi to feel even more pity for her. "Good child, don't be sad. From now on, this will be your home, and your aunt will be your family. Silly child, don't cry." Wang couldn't help but sigh as she hugged Gu Fengzi. "Thank you, Aunt. Feng is so lucky to have you as my aunt in this life." Gu Fengzi nodded and wiped her tears. She then smiled at Wang and said, "Aunt, yesterday I was praying in the temple when I dreamt of my father again. He told me that everything that happened in the past was his fault. He didn't fulfill his responsibilities as a husband and father, causing my mother and I to suffer so much. Unfortunately, it's too late for regrets. He can only make it up to us in the next life." Wang couldn't help but sigh. She put her hands together and said, "For him to think like that, it's clear that he's a person with a conscience. Unfortunately, it's too late." Chapter 86. Gu Fengzi sighed again. "My father also said that it's all thanks to you and big cousin for taking care of us all these years. He has no way of repaying you, but he will definitely bless you to live a long life and bless the Shi family's business to flourish. He also said that Feng must be filial to you and serve big cousin well to repay the Gu family's kindness." As Gu Fengzi spoke, she covered her face and sobbed. She got up and knelt in front of Wang before kowtowing deeply. Quickly get up, quickly get up." Wang hurriedly ordered the servants to help her up and said gently, "You child, you've always been sensible, and I've seen how well you've treated Aunt and Fengju all these years. You've already been very good and filial. Be good, don't be like this. Aren't you purposely making Aunt's heart ache? Your father too, there's no need for him to say such things again. The corner of Wang's mouth rose slightly and her face revealed a hint of joy. She thought to herself that Gu Jin was much more sensible after his death and still knew how to repay kindness. If he really blesses the Shi family for better and better, then he's doing us right. Gu Fengzi choked with sobs as she thanked her and got up. She wiped her tears and said, "My father also said that he already knows of my filial piety towards him, and that I don't have to be too formal. He said that since I've already entered the Shi family, I'm already part of the Shi family, and there's no need for me to mourn for him for another 3 years. He also said that by being filial to aunt and serving big cousin well, that's already the greatest filial piety towards him." As Gu Fengzi spoke, she took out a piece of yellow paper from her sleeve and presented it to Wang with both hands. "This morning, I sought an audience with the abbot and told him about my dream last night. I asked him to interpret my dream and teach me what to do. Aunt, please take a look, this is the abbot's analysis." "Oh, then let me take a look," Wang said and quickly unfolded the paper. After receiving it, Wang then remembered that she did not know many words, but this paper was indeed used by the abbot of Guangling Temple. It was written so neatly and beautifully, just like the signature written by the master abbot in the past. "Why don't you read it to Auntie?" Wang handed it back to Gu Fengzi. Gu Fengzi took the book and read a total of 5 to 6 sentences. Then she explained it to Wang. It was nothing more than knowing one's mistakes and changing for the better. It was exactly what Gu Jin had done in the past and what he regretted today. And the most important thing was, as Gu Fengzi had said, the mourning period could be reduced. Observing filial piety for my late father is an important matter. Although my father said so, as his daughter, I don't know how long I should observe for to suit his wishes. Thus, I asked the great master to make the decision. Gu Fengzi smiled through her tears and nodded. I won't say any more. Fortunately, Aunt Fengzi's fortune is great, and the Shi family is also a family of good fortune, allowing Fengzi to be protected here. Kiki, you're still so smart and witty. How can you complain that everyone likes you? Shi Yumei laughed and reached out to pinch her cheeks. When Wang heard her say, "not blessed," she subconsciously thought of Mama Li's words and felt a little gloomy. But when she heard those words, she became happy again. Seeing how close her cousins were, she smiled and said, all right, Fengzi, you can go back. You two sisters can go back and talk. You're making me annoyed here. I'll get someone to call for you too when dinner is ready. It just so happens that I have a lot to say to cousin Fengzi. Then I won't disturb mother any longer." Shi Yumei got up with a smile. "That's right." Gu Fengzi smiled and said goodbye to Wang before leaving with Shi Yumei. Just as they left the main courtyard, Shi Yumei couldn't wait to talk about Sangwon and asked about Sangwon. Gu Fengzi rejoiced in her heart, but her expression was slightly restrained. Subconsciously, she swept her gaze around and smiled as she tried to change the topic. She asked when big cousin Fengzi arrived. Was the journey tiring? Wait. Shi Yumei was furious. Not at Gu Fengzi, but at Sangwon. Gu Fengzi was a straightforward person. Who would have thought that under Sangwon's suppression, she wouldn't even dare to say a word. From this, one could see how domineering Sangwon usually was. For someone from the Sang family to marry into her family, her ancestors must have burned incense for 8 generations. Not only did she not follow the rules and live an honest life, she even became domineering. Who does she think she is? Fengzi, it's not that I want to nag at you, but it's only been a year since we last met. Where did your courage go? To be frightened by someone from the Sang family? Shi Yumei sneered. Cousin Sangwon, what are you saying? Fengzi doesn't understand. Gu Fengzi smiled and her eyes twinkled. Seeing that Shi Yumei was about to open her mouth again, she hurriedly grabbed her wrist and pinched it. She looked at her with pleading eyes. Cousin Sangwon. Shi Yumei let out a long sigh. Forget it, let's talk about it when we return to Peony Park. Seeing her like this, it was obvious that she had too many misgivings. Now that she was a concubine and Sangwon was a wife, If Sangwon wanted to make things difficult for her, she wouldn't be able to do anything. Why should she create trouble for Sangwon just because of a momentary slip of the tongue? Good. Gu Fengzi's expression relaxed and she quickly nodded with a smile. Once they returned to Peony Park, Shi Yumei didn't need to be polite and went straight to the point. Of course, Gu Fengzi took a step back and refused to say anything. Shi Yumei had always been an impatient and straightforward person. In just a few moments, she was agitated by Gu Fengzi to the point of jumping up and down. Under her persevering and unceremonious interrogation, Gu Fengzi finally revealed half of her grievances and stuttered awkwardly. The remaining half was left to Shi Yumei's imagination. The space for imagination was endless. The more Shi Yumei thought about it, the more she felt that Sangwon wasn't a good person. That troublemaker. How could second brother marry her? I knew she wasn't a good person. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to coax mother and second brother. Shi Yumei said hatefully, "Mother is really muddle-headed. I should have annulled this marriage and not let her in. You're better than her in every aspect and you can help second brother in business. You're the most suitable daughter-in-law for our Shi family." Gu Fengzi liked to hear those words and she thought so too. She couldn't help but feel warm in her heart. She held Shi Yumei's hand tightly and choked, "Cousin Yumei, with those words of yours, Fengzi is worth everything. It's Fengzi who doesn't have such good fortune, so I can't blame anyone else." Shi Yumei snorted, "Nonsense. If you don't have such good fortune, then that lass from the Sang family is even more unworthy. Humph, I'd like to see how long she can be smug for. Other than seducing men, what else can that vixen do? What part of her is worthy of our Fengju?" Gu Fengzi was delighted to hear that and quickly persuaded, "Cousin Yumei, you mustn't say that. Now, she's the one in charge of this household. So what?" Shi Yumei became angrier. "As the eldest daughter of the Shi family, why should I be afraid of her? I'd like to see what she can do to me." "Cousin Yumei, you're the eldest daughter of the Shi family and also Aunt Wang's favorite. She definitely won't dare to do anything to you. You just have to enjoy your life, so why do you have to be so meddlesome? I'm just feeling unjust for you. And also for our Shi family. Mother is still alive and healthy, yet she dares to humiliate you like this. What will happen in the future?" Shi Yumei glared at her and frowned. "I say, you're too honest. When did you change to have such a temper? It's really infuriating. Aren't you going to tell Fengju that she's bullying you like this?" Gu Fengzi's sore spot was poked and her heart ached. Why didn't I tell him? It's a pity that Cousin Yumei is so bewitched by her that he won't stand up for me. Yet another set of excuses came out of his mouth. "How can that be?" Gu Fengzi sighed and quickly said, "Big Cousin Yumei is always so busy outside. He should have a good rest when he's home. How can I trouble him with such trivial matters? Besides, Cousin Yumei, you're really thinking too much. It's just a small matter. Look, Sister Yumei hasn't mistreated me." Her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled from the bottom of her heart. "Great. That's really great." She held Shi Yumei's hand tightly and smiled happily. "Eldest cousin sister, now we can talk together more often. Just like in the past." "Yes." Shi Yumei saw that Gu Fengzi was happy and welcomed her from the bottom of her heart, and she couldn't help but feel happy as well. Thinking of the happy times they spent together in the past, her heart warmed even more. "Since eldest cousin sister is here, I still have a companion to relieve my boredom." "How nice." Gu Fengzi smiled again and sighed. "Speaking of which, I'm afraid that eldest cousin sister won't be staying at home for long. When cousin-in-law's husband becomes an official, eldest cousin sister, you can just wait to enjoy life. When that time comes, don't forget about me. Remember to come back often." Everyone loved to hear good words, especially those that touched the bottom of their hearts. When Shi Yumei heard this, she was elated and beamed with joy. It was as if her husband's success in the examinations was just around the corner. She was so happy that she repeatedly said yes. Gu Fengzi saw that she had managed to coax Shi Yumei into a good mood, so she continued to flatter Shi Yumei, which made her even more dissatisfied with Sang Wan. Soon, it was almost dinner time. Xiu Chun came over with a smile and invited eldest Missy back for dinner. It's actually time. Shi Yumei looked out at the sky in surprise. She pulled Gu Fengzi and said with a smile, "Let's go, we can go together." "Eldest cousin sister, you should go." Gu Fengzi refused and smiled apologetically. "I'm still in my mourning period, so I can't go. I'll just eat a little in Peony Park." Shi Yumei heard this and couldn't help but sympathize with her. She gently patted her hand and said softly, "Then I won't force you. Don't think about those sad things. Eat more, your health is more important." I know. Eldest cousin sister, you're just like my sister. You still care about me so much. Gu Fengzi nodded gratefully. We're just like sisters. Shi Yumei smiled and went back with Xiu Chun. On the way, she called Ran Jixien and the two of them went together with their concubine, Cui Zhu. From time to time, the food was served and the three of them sat down. Shi Yumei's eyes turned and she couldn't help but frown. "Why don't I see Wan Yang? Why are you looking for her?" Wang smiled in surprise. Shi Yumei snorted and said, "Is there anyone like her who's a daughter-in-law? It's fine if she doesn't serve her mother-in-law when she's eating, but she doesn't even show her shadow. She's really the head of the household. How arrogant. Hey, let's eat." When Wang heard this, she waved her hand and said with a smile, "I told her that she didn't need to serve. Nanny Jiang, Xiu Chun, and Xiu Li are enough. Why did she have to come?" Shi Yumei said unhappily, "Mother, your temper is too good. You've spoiled her until she doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You're magnanimous if you don't mind, but how can the rules be wrong? Isn't the Sang family known as a scholarly family? How can they teach a girl who doesn't even understand such a simple principle? When my mother-in-law was still alive, I was always there to serve her when she was eating. As a daughter-in-law, I should do my duty as a daughter-in-law." Ran Jixien also nodded and said, "That's right, Yumei is right. This is filial piety. We can't disobey. She's such an intelligent person. How can she be so muddle-headed? She really was an embroidered pillow." Ran Jixien felt even more disappointed. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to find anyone who resonated with him in this family. Shi Yumei saw that her husband agreed with her and was about to say yes. However, after hearing what her husband said, her face darkened. She looked at her husband and sneered. "Intelligent? How many times have you seen her? How do you know she's intelligent?" What should he say? Ran Jixien was momentarily at a loss for words. With a stern face, he scolded, "How can you talk like that? Really?" Shi Yumei had just heard from Gu Fengzi that Sang Wan had a stomach full of grievances. Ran Jixien's words were like adding oil to the fire. Her anger rose rapidly. She sneered and raised her voice. "Say it. How do you know she's intelligent? You're unreasonable." Ran Jixien had never been a polite person. He immediately flicked his sleeves and said with a straight face, "Look at you. How can you shout like this? Don't you have any manners at all? You're no different from a shrew in the marketplace." "What? You dare to call me a shrew?" Shi Yumei was so angry that her face turned red. She rushed over and grabbed his clothes, crying and making a fuss. "You dare to call me a shrew? I serve you every day until I'm exhausted, but I can't even compare to her back. I can't live like this anymore. Let go of my hand. Who allowed you to be so unruly? How dare you hit your own husband?" Ran Jixien flew into a rage out of humiliation and tried to pry her hand away. What is this?" Wang Shi did not notice that Shi Yumei had said something about a back view. She was so angry that her voice trembled as she pointed at the two people. She glared hatefully at the servants who were waiting at the side. "What are you still standing there for? Quickly pull them away. Pull her away." The maidservants looked at each other as if they had just woken up from a dream. They shouted, "Eldest Missy, eldest young master," and rushed forward to pull Shi Yumei away with great difficulty. "Mother." Shi Yumei was ashamed and ashamed. She wiped her tears and cried. When Wang Shi saw this, she was both angry and distressed. But before she could say anything, Ran Jixien spoke first. He flicked his sleeves and said coldly, "Mother-in-law, did you see that? How unruly and unreasonable was this woman? Is this how the Shi family teaches their daughters?" Wang's breath was stuck in her chest. With a pale face, she said with a trembling voice, Are you questioning me? Your Ren family has such great etiquette. As a son-in-law, you dare to question your mother-in-law." Ran Jixien was stunned and immediately said, "This son-in-law doesn't dare. This son-in-law has no intention of questioning mother-in-law. Mother-in-law, please discipline this shrew properly. Otherwise, the Shi family will lose face." "Don't worry. My daughter doesn't need you to care about her," Wang said angrily and hatefully. "My daughter was such a good person when she was at home. I want to ask you, what is going on? How did she become like this in just a few years?" The more Wang thought about it, the sadder she became. She couldn't help but cry. Ran Jixien said resentfully, "That's right. I also want to ask, why is she so different from before? It's like she's a different person." Ran Jixien thought to himself, "Humph, don't look down on me. Seeing that I'm in dire straits, you dare to be so presumptuous. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? Just wait and see. When I'm successful in the future, don't you regret it." Nanny Jiang couldn't stand it anymore. She hurriedly comforted Wang and begged Ran Jixien, "Mother-in-law, please don't say too much. After all, First Madam is your elder. A servant dared to teach him a lesson?" Ran Jixien was infuriated. He flicked his sleeves, snorted coldly, and turned to leave. He actually, Wang gasped for breath and almost couldn't catch her breath. Shi Yumei was so shocked that she couldn't care about herself. She hurriedly called out "Mother," and rushed over to soothe Wang's chest. It took a while for her to catch her breath. The mother and daughter looked at each other and cried, "It's all my fault. Why can't I change my bad temper?" Shi Yumei forced a smile and said, "It's all my fault for making Mother so sad. Look, the dishes are already cold. Nanny Jiang, ask someone to heat them up." Wang sighed and looked at her daughter. She wanted to say something but stopped. He didn't notice it before, but now that he took a closer look, he realized that his daughter was much thinner than before. Her eyes were no longer as bright as before, and had become a little dull. Her lips were pale and colorless, and there were actually fine wrinkles under the corners of her eyes and on her forehead. Looking carefully, her daughter's spirit was not as good as hers. Chapter 88. Wang could not help but feel pity for Shi Yumei. She hugged her daughter and sighed softly, "My good daughter, I've wronged you. When your second brother comes back, he'll make the decision for you." Wang could not help but feel hatred in her heart. Shameless. My family helped you pay off your debt and provided you with good food and drinks, yet you dare to talk to me about etiquette? What the hell? Even if my family has a lot of money, I'm not willing to spend it like this. I might as well feed it to the dogs. No, don't. Shi Yumei panicked and said, "Mother, can you not tell second brother about what happened today? Don't tell him." Mother. Shi Yumei smiled as if nothing had happened. "I'm also at fault for what happened today. He's a man, yet he's staying with his wife at her parents' house. I think he's feeling a little uncomfortable and sensitive. I shouldn't be so angry. We should talk things out. It's all my fault. I even made you worry about me." Shi Yumei choked with sobs. Wang was also feeling bad. Seeing her daughter like this, it was inconvenient for her to be angry. She sighed and said, "It's not that I want to say this. Forget it, I'll listen to you no matter what you say." This is really... Shi Yumei heaved a sigh of relief when her mother agreed. However, She felt even more sorry for her mother. After some thought, she said, "Mother, I think we should quickly tidy up Banana Courtyard after the Mid-Autumn Festival and move in. That way, we won't cause trouble for you all the time." Wang could not bear to part with her daughter. She opened her mouth and was about to persuade her to stay when she suddenly thought of her unreliable son-in-law. Out of sight, out of mind. She nodded and said, "That's good too. Once you've settled down in Banana Courtyard, you can live a good life. Didn't my son-in-law say that he's going to participate in the provincial examination 3 years later? Just listen to your second brother and focus on studying in the courtyard. He doesn't have to worry about anything else." Thank you, Mother. Mother and second brother are still the best to me." Sure You May smiled gratefully. The dishes were served again and the mother and daughter sat down to eat. Sure You May felt sorry for her husband, so she picked up a few dishes and asked Cui Zhu to bring them to Ran Jixian. Seeing this, Wang didn't say a word and just let her do it herself. The next day was the annual Mid-Autumn Festival. The Shi family got up early in the morning to prepare for the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet. In Ning Garden, the maidservants, daughters-in-law, and older female servants were shuttling back and forth. Some were taking care of matters, some were taking the right tiles, some were taking things, and some were asking eldest young mistress to make decisions. It was very lively. Sang Wan, Xing Ji, and the others were extremely busy. If eldest sister likes it, I'll ask someone to send some over to eldest sister later. Sure You May nodded and said with a smile, "Forget it, don't ask someone to send it to me. If I get used to it, it won't be good if I can't eat it in the future. It's better not to have it in the first place." Then she said with a smile that was not a smile, "Anyway, it's the same if younger sister-in-law has it here. When I get hungry and want to drink a few mouthfuls, I'll come over and disturb you. Younger sister-in-law, you won't find me annoying, right?" Sang Wan could not help but feel depressed. She thought to herself, "How did I offend her? Why does she always speak with such thorns? Listen to what eldest sister is saying. How could I dislike eldest sister? I can't wait for eldest sister to come over when you're free." Sang Wan could only smile and say, "If eldest sister really likes this tea, I'll tell eldest young master later. Eldest young master has always respected eldest sister. I think that no matter when eldest sister wants, no matter how much you want, he will definitely do it." Sure You May was waiting for Sang Wan to take care of everything and say that in the future, Sang Wan would take care of the tea and let her come over to take as much as she wanted. If Sang Wan really said that, she could take the opportunity to mock her and say things like, "rich and overbearing," as expected of the head of a household. However, she did not expect that Sang Wan would use Shi Fengju to speak, which made Sure You May unable to do anything. She was indeed a scheming person. Sure You May sneered inwardly. "Is that so? If you really don't dislike me, then I'll take it seriously. You can't regret coming over often in the future." Sure You May smiled and sighed with a half-real half-fake smile. "Speaking of which, I really need to curry favor with you in the future. In the end, I'm a married lady. How can I not curry favor with the head of the household when I return to stay with them? I still understand this principle. Don't you think so, sister-in-law?" "Eldest sister, you're exaggerating." Sang Wan's expression changed slightly. She looked at Sure You May and said seriously, "The head of this household is mother. Wan Nyang is just helping mother to take care of some complicated matters. I can't accept eldest sister's praise." "Why can't I accept it? A county magistrate is not as good as being in charge. Besides, all of this will be yours in the future. It doesn't matter if it's earlier or later." Sure You May said with a cold smile, "My mother has a good temper. She always thinks well of others and doesn't guard against them. She just takes a few words of praise from others as sincerity. Sister-in-law, I think it's more reliable for you to be in charge of this household, lest outsiders take advantage of our Shi family. Don't you think so?" Sang Wan clenched her handkerchief tightly. Her body was trembling slightly from anger. She suddenly realized and smiled. "You're indeed eldest sister. Your knowledge is extraordinary. Wan Nyang is stupid, like a frog at the bottom of a well. She has never heard of such a great principle. Sure Yu Mei was choked by her blunt words. Although she was angry in her heart, she clapped her hands and smiled. You're indeed my sister-in-law. What a smart person. You understand with just a little bit. As your eldest sister, I've taught you such a great principle. Sister-in-law, aren't you going to thank me? What kind of great principle is this? Sangwon didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She nodded and smiled. Eldest sister is right. I should thank eldest sister properly. I knew that sister-in-law is generous. Sure Yu Mei smiled and said, eldest sister is not a greedy person. You can just give eldest sister any of your jewelry. How about it? How about it? What else could she do? Could she refuse? Sangwon couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. She thought to herself, eldest sister is the eldest daughter of the Sher family. She was pampered by her mother-in-law since she was young. Eldest young master is also very respectful towards her. How could she be so short-sighted as to say such words that are equivalent to robbery? But if she wants it, then so be it. These jewelry are not mine anyway. Sangwon didn't know that Sher Yu Mei was deliberately fighting for justice for Gu Fengzi. She was sure that Sangwon was scheming against Gu Fengzi's things and wanted her to bleed. As long as eldest sister doesn't mind, eldest sister can choose for herself. Sangwon smiled. Sister-in-law is indeed generous. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Sher Yu Mei clapped her hands and smiled. Sangwon wanted to ask someone to bring the jewelry box over, but Sher Yu Mei said that there was no need to trouble herself. So, she went into the room with Sangwon and began to choose in front of the dressing table. She saw pearls, gems, and gold ornaments. Every piece of jewelry was exquisitely crafted and dazzling. Sher Yu Mei couldn't help but secretly exclaim. She was someone who knew the value of the jewelry. With just one look, she knew how valuable the jewelry was. She thought to herself, this woman is indeed scheming. I wonder what kind of magic she used to make Fengjiu so infatuated that he bought so many good things for me. She knew her younger brother's temper well. If he wasn't willing, no one would be able to get anything from him. And once he treated someone well, he would definitely do it wholeheartedly. Sher Yu Mei felt even more indignant on behalf of Gu Fengzi. She couldn't help but resent her younger brother a little. She picked up a necklace made of 18 thumb-sized pearls. The pearls were perfectly round and had a soft and round luster. It was heavy and luxurious. Sher Yu Mei clicked her tongue in praise. Putting it down, she picked up an emerald white jade hairpin and played with it in her hands. The entire hairpin had a shallow arc about half the length of a finger. The base was made of pure gold, and the golden threads intertwined to form the shape of a begonia. The top of the hairpin was inlaid with fine emerald white jade. The white jade was used as the petals, and the pearls were used as the core, surrounded by emerald green leaves and twigs. The pearls shone brightly and the jade ornaments were splendid. Holding it in her hand, it was heavy and exquisite. Chapter 89. Sister-in-law, you have so many good things. My eyes are dazzled. Every single one of them is good. Sher Yu Mei praised with a smile and said, why don't sister-in-law just pick one or two? Anything is fine. Of course, Sangwon wouldn't agree. She knew that no matter what she picked, Sher Yu Mei wouldn't like it. She might as well let her pick it herself. After all, it wasn't something that truly belonged to her. She wouldn't feel bad if someone else picked it. Sher Yu Mei saw that she insisted on picking, so she smiled and didn't hold back. She picked out the white jade hairpin that Sangwon had put in her hairbun when she first met Sangwon. Then, she picked out 2 18 jade bracelets, one studded with rubies, the other studded with pearls, a pair of jewel-studded hairpins, and a pair of gold-studded lantern earrings. Sher Yu Mei secretly observed Sangwon's expression as she picked. She didn't see any hint of reluctance on her face. Sher Yu Mei suddenly felt a little bored. Upon closer inspection, Sang-won's expression didn't seem to be fake. Sure Yu-mei felt a little apologetic. She thought that it was enough to teach her a lesson, so she stopped. Sister-in-law, you're so generous. As your elder sister, I feel embarrassed. I didn't bring any gifts for you, but you picked out your things first. I don't know what other people will say about me if they see me like this. Sure Yu-mei said with a smile that was half true and half false. How could that be? Sang-won smiled and said, You're the eldest daughter of the Sure family. You're the elder sister of the eldest young master, which means you're Wan Nyong's elder sister. Elder sister, you're treating me like an outsider. As Sang-won spoke, she asked Hong Yi to find a red sandalwood jewelry box inlaid with jade conch fragments and flowers. She put all the jewelry that Sure Yu-mei picked in the box and handed it to Cui Zhu. Sure Yu-mei was very happy to hear this. Not only was the jewelry box made of good materials, it had a beautiful appearance, and the inside was padded with red velvet cushions. It was perfectly divided into small compartments, and each compartment could hold one item. It was very considerate. It was obvious that it was also a valuable item. Sang-won took the initiative to give it to her, so she didn't know what she was thinking. However, the resentment in her heart, for no reason, had reduced a lot. Oh, Sang-won smiled. Eldest young master already told me that he'll be able to clean Banana Courtyard in a few days for elder sister and brother-in-law to live. When it's cleaned, I invite elder sister to come with me to see what you want. I don't know elder sister's preferences, so it's better for elder sister to see it personally. When Sure Yu-mei heard the words brother-in-law, she couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. She smiled and said, Sure. However, I'm a bit picky. I'm afraid that younger sister-in-law will find me troublesome and complain. Elder sister, what are you saying? I definitely won't. Sang-won smiled. That's good. Sure Yu-mei smiled. Younger sister-in-law, you're busy here, so I won't disturb you. I'll go back first. Elder sister, take care. Come visit again when you have time. Sang-won secretly sighed in relief and personally sent her out. At night, during the Mid-Autumn Festival, the two branches ate together at Wang's courtyard. Everyone in the residence was present, except for Gu Fengzi. In Peony Park, Gu Fengzi was eating a vegetarian meal alone. She looked out the window at the bright moon that looked like a jade plate. It hung high in the blue sky, sprinkling light on the ground, and the mottled branches could be seen. Looking up at the moon and then down at herself, Gu Fengzi's eyes couldn't help but turn red. The surroundings were quiet, with only the occasional wind blowing and the soft rustling of leaves. In this silence, she seemed to be able to hear the joy of the Sure family, the sound of toasts and laughter. Compared to the cold and cheerless atmosphere between her and her servant, she felt even more miserable. It's fine if it's someone else, but eldest cousin didn't even come to see me. He didn't even greet me. Gu Fengzi couldn't help but feel resentful. She didn't know that Sure Fengju had rushed home from Mengxian not long before dinner. Sang-won, it must be that slut Sang-won's doing. Imagining Sang-won dressed up luxuriously and happily accompanying Sure Fengju at this moment, Gu Fengzi couldn't help but feel resentful. During the meal in the main courtyard, Ran Jixian was a lot more well-behaved. The two of them didn't cause any problems, and the others didn't either. The meal was a joyous and harmonious one. Not long after the meal, the family went to Furong Ting, which was near the water. They specially invited an opera troupe to perform in the open air. They enjoyed the moon and laughed while listening to the opera. It was quite lively. Sure Yu-mei hadn't listened to an opera so peacefully for a long time, so she didn't have time to bother Sang-won. Wang only cared about chatting with her sisters-in-law and daughter, so she didn't bother Sang-won. Second old Mistress Sure's daughter-in-law had been refusing to come back ever since she returned to her parents' home. She felt embarrassed and didn't have the nerve to talk about her sister-in-law's daughter-in-law. Sang-won finally heaved a sigh of relief after a few days. She sat at a secluded corner and almost fell asleep. Feeling someone gently draping clothes over her, Sang-won gently opened her eyes. Seeing that it was Lu Ye, she smiled and said, "You're so considerate. The weather isn't cold, so you don't have to do this." Why aren't you watching the opera? Go, I have a servant here. I don't need you to wait on me. All the housekeepers, nannies, and servants loved to watch the opera. Xingji, Lu Ye, and the others had just been chased away by Sang-won. At this moment, the masters were sitting in the middle, while the housekeepers and nannies were sitting at the side. There was also a large circle of people around them who were stretching their necks to watch the show. It just so happened that Wang Shi liked to be crowded and lively. She ordered the servants to set up several long tables at the side. On top of the tables, there were many melon seeds, candies, and other things for the maidservants to eat and watch the show. She felt that the more people there were, the more lively it would be. Upon hearing that, Lu Ye bent over and laughed softly. This servant was just watching the show from the side. Who knew that young master would suddenly ask someone to call this servant over? He said that young mistress was tired and would catch a cold if she were to sleep outside at night. He asked this servant to bring some clothes for young mistress. Young mistress, young master really dotes on you. Sang-won was stunned and subconsciously looked towards Shi Fengju's direction. She saw that he was looking at her and smiled at her when he saw her looking over. Sang-won's face reddened and she glared at Lu Ye. You talk too much. You've already gotten the clothes, so quickly go. If you're any later, we won't be able to continue the show. Yes, young mistress. Then this servant will be going now. Lu Ye pursed her lips and giggled before turning around to leave. Sang-won subconsciously stroked the red embroidered silk cloak on her body. The smooth and delicate fabric felt very good to the touch. It was soft and heavy in her hand, and it carried the cool night breeze. She gently lowered her head and her heart was filled with mixed feelings. She didn't know when the sleepiness and tiredness had already disappeared. Late at night, the kitchen sent supper over. Each person was given a bowl of steaming hot and fragrant chicken soup noodles. It was accompanied by tender cabbage, dried scallops, ham, fresh bamboo shoots, and mushrooms. It was very delicious. After everyone ate, they chatted and laughed as they dispersed. Sang-won had to carefully instruct the housekeepers and nannies to do their jobs well. Those that needed to be cleaned, cleaned, and those that needed to be cleaned, cleaned the wine utensils, and put away the tables, chairs, flower vases, incense burners, and other things. Don't forget to return them to the warehouse tomorrow. Young mistress, this servant knows. Young mistress, don't worry. This servant will make sure to tidy up properly and won't let young mistress worry. It's already late, so you should quickly go back and rest. You see, young master is still waiting for you. Sang-won wanted to continue instructing, but one of the housekeepers glanced behind Sang-won and said with a smile. Everyone knew that this young mistress was serious and had a good temper. She spoke softly and softly. As long as they followed the rules, she would never throw a tantrum and humiliate others. She would also not vent her anger on the servants, so they dared to joke with her. Hearing this, they couldn't help but laugh and agree. Young mistress, quickly go back. Don't let young master wait too long. That's right, young master has already looked over here several times. When we return, he will blame us for being useless and not knowing how to do things. Sang-won was a little embarrassed by their words and couldn't help but laugh as she scolded, Don't be so talkative. Tidy up carefully. I won't be satisfied if there's one less item tomorrow. As she said this, she turned around and left, surrounded by her servants. As expected, Shi Fengju was standing at the small path waiting for her. He was wearing a moon-white floral robe with a brocade belt around his waist. His figure was tall and slender, and he was casually looking forward with his hands behind his back. When the wind blew, the corners of his robe fluttered slightly. At first glance, he looked like a banished immortal. When he saw Sang-won and her entourage coming over, Shi Fengju smiled at her and indicated for her to come forward. Sang-won was a little embarrassed, but also felt a little sweet for no reason. She lowered her head and gently walked forward. Let's go back. Shi Fengju raised his hand to wrap it around her shoulder, but he thought about it and put it down. Sang-won nodded. The two of them walked back together like this. They seemed to be very close to each other, but in fact, the corners of their robes never touched each other. Sangwon's footsteps were also slightly behind Shi Fengju's by half a step. Shi Fengju could even hear her shallow breathing. However, there was always a gap between them, as if there was something lying between them, preventing the two of them from moving forward. The two of them were silent all the way until they returned to Ning Garden. After washing up and returning to their room, Shi Fengju suddenly called out to Sangwon. "The mutton fat white jade hairpin I gave you, you gave it to eldest sister?" Sangwon was startled. She suddenly remembered that the hairpin was inserted into Shi Yumei's hair tonight. She nodded and smiled. "Yes, you saw it." Shi Fengju suddenly felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. At first glance, he felt that the hairpin was very suitable for her, so he specially bought it for her as a gift. He didn't expect that she would give it away so casually in the blink of an eye. Although the person who gave it to her was his own sister, Shi Fengju still felt uncomfortable in his heart. "Why did you suddenly think of giving something to eldest sister?" Shi Fengju said, "Logically speaking, you should give each other gifts when you meet for the first time. However, that hairpin was worn by you before. How could you give it to eldest sister? If you want to give her something, just tell me. I'll have someone buy it again." Chapter 90. Sangwon was inwardly angry, and her expression became somewhat unsightly. She thought to herself, "Are you despising the things I've worn because they're not clean? They're not worthy of your noble big sister." Shi Fengju looked at Sangwon's expression and pondered over his words. He knew that he had made a mistake, so he hurriedly said with a smile, "That, Won Yong, don't think too much. I didn't mean to despise you. It's just that. I just thought that hairpin looks pretty good on you. Why did you have to choose that one to give to big sister? Don't you have a lot of other jewelry?" Sangwon's expression softened, but her tone hardened. She said indifferently, "What's the difference? Aren't they all the same?" In his heart, he thought, "Your big sister chose it herself. How can I say no? I'm afraid that if I don't give it to you, you'll find trouble with me later." Shi Fengju was momentarily at a loss for words. He was depressed and couldn't say anything. Seeing that Sangwon was about to turn around and go to bed, Shi Fengju's heart warmed. He couldn't help but blurt out, "Of course it's not the same. I bought that hairpin especially for you. I don't want you to give it to someone else." Sangwon suddenly froze. Her body stiffened, and she couldn't move. What did he say? He said that he, especially, gave it to her? She didn't hear wrongly, right? Shi Fengju took a deep breath. "Won Yang, you didn't hear wrongly. I especially gave it to you. I think that hairpin suits you very well. I didn't expect that you would give it to someone else." Sangwon's lips moved, and she said softly, Big Sister came over today. The gift was chosen by Big Sister herself." "What?" Shi Fengju's eyes lit up. His terrible mood lightened up a little. Sangwon felt a little embarrassed and said vaguely, "Nothing. It's getting late. You should rest early." Shi Fengju laughed and said, "You mean that Big Sister chose that hairpin herself, and you didn't take the initiative to give it to her?" Sangwon said, "I already gave it to her. What's the point of pursuing this?" He could only nod and say, "Yes." The corners of Shi Fengju's mouth curled up as if he was addicted to asking questions. He hurriedly asked, "Then, do you like that hairpin?" "I like it." Sangwon nodded gently. "I know." Shi Fengju smiled and said, "If Big Sister wants to take it away, then so be it. You don't have to be reluctant. I'll find you a better one later. Sleep early." "All right," Sangwon said. When did I say that I was reluctant? But when he said that, she still felt happy for no reason. At the very least, she wasn't completely insignificant in his heart, was she? Early the next morning, Lan Xiang hurriedly rushed to the main courtyard to look for Shi Yumei. With an anxious expression, she said, "Eldest Missy, our young mistress has fallen ill." This servant didn't dare to make a sound. Thinking that eldest Missy was here, this servant gathered her courage and came to beg eldest Missy. What should we do? When Sure You May heard this, she became anxious and scolded, Silly girl. Your young mistress is sick. Why haven't you called a doctor yet? But, young mistress said that it's not a big deal. She didn't want eldest mistress to worry over such a small matter. Lon Xiong stammered. When Sure You May saw this, she frowned. As she walked with Lon Xiong to Peony Park, she said angrily, Let's go. I'll go with you to take a look. Why is this person so scared? She's so careful. She didn't even dare to ask Sang Wan to call a doctor when she was sick. It could be seen how much Sang Wan had bullied her on a daily basis. Sure You May couldn't help but grit her teeth. That woman really knows how to act to win people's hearts. I'm also a short-sighted person. Yesterday, when I saw a few pieces of jewelry, I couldn't help but have a good impression of her. I was almost fooled by that one-faced, two-faced thing. Gu Fengzi's face was flushed red. She was wearing soft ivory silk undergarments and lying on the bed, coughing non-stop. Her hair was tied up in a bun and held up loosely with a silver hairpin. Her eyes were slightly red and her face was haggard. She looked very pitiful and cute. How did you become like this? Wasn't everything fine yesterday? Sure You May was shocked. She sat on the edge of the bed and cried out, Cousin You May. Gu Fengzi had just called out to her when her eyes reddened and tears welled up in them. Don't cry, don't cry. Sure You May gently pulled her into her arms and gently patted her back. She said softly, My good sister, don't be sad. Do you feel very uncomfortable? I'll go ask that vicious woman. You're already like this and no one has come to greet you. Don't. Gu Fengzi hurriedly pulled Sure You May back. She held back her tears and said, It's not sister's fault. It's all Fengzi's fault. I shouldn't have sat in the courtyard for so long last night. That's why I caught a cold. I don't know why, but I unknowingly sat there until late at night. This morning, I felt a headache and couldn't get up. I've troubled eldest cousin again. It's all my fault. Sure You May couldn't help but blame herself. She sighed and said, I should have thought of you last night and come over to accompany you. Gu Fengzi hurriedly smiled and said, Eldest cousin, what are you saying? It's not easy for you to come back to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival. You should be accompanying Aunt Wang to fulfill your filial piety. Even if you came, Fengzi wouldn't let you. Sure You May thought about it and felt even more annoyed with Sang Wan. Let's not talk about whether we came or not. That lass from the Sang family didn't even come to see you. Is this how she, as the legal wife, takes care of the people around Fengju? That Sang family really knows how to teach their daughters. Sister was busy with the arrangements for the festival and was actually quite tired and busy. Eldest cousin, please don't blame her. In the end, it's all Fengzi's fault. She shouldn't have coveted the moonlight. You are. Sure You May couldn't help but sigh in pity. She said firmly, Don't worry. You can't do this in the future. I'll take care of everything. Aye, that's true. Why didn't Fengju come over yesterday? Gu Fengzi's words poked at Sure You May's sore spot. Her expression turned gloomy and she forced a smile. Big cousin, he must be busy. Fengzi knows that he must be worried about Fengzi. As long as he has the heart, it's enough. Sure You May suddenly remembered that Sure Fengju had only just entered the house yesterday evening. It was all because of her husband. She felt a little guilty and coughed to stop the topic. She nodded at Gu Fengzi and smiled. That's true. You and my second brother grew up together and he has always been good to you. No one can compare to him. It's good that you understand his intentions. She then glared at Lon Xiong. Silly lass, why are you still standing here? Why aren't you calling for a doctor? Can't you see that your Missy is in pain? Lon Xiong quickly glanced at Gu Fengzi before hurriedly turning around and running off. Sure You May was busy comforting Gu Fengzi. Gu Fengzi could only cheer herself up and smile gratefully. However, she couldn't help but feel disappointed in her heart. She wanted to beat around the bush and hint to Shi Yumei to remind her big cousin to come visit her often. Who knew that before she could say anything, Shi Yumei stopped. Lan Xiang ran to Ning Garden 1 to inform Sang Wan. Sang Wan instructed someone to call for a doctor while she personally went to Peony Park to take a look. Younger sister is sick? Is it serious? Sang Wan went in and asked with concern. Oh, why did older sister come personally? Gu Fengzi struggled to get up. Her face was full of awe and surprise. Younger sister, lie down and don't move. Sang Wan saw her putting on an act and sneered in her heart. However, she could only go along with the act. Taking a few steps forward, she held her down and blamed herself. It's all my fault for not taking care of you and causing you to fall sick. So you know that too? Shi Yumei snorted coldly. Since you're Fengju's wife, you should be magnanimous and virtuous. Fengzi is a legitimate concubine, yet you take care of her like this? Not to mention, she's my mother's niece. If you treat her like this, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear the consequences if my mother blames you. It's my negligence. Sang Wan lowered her head slightly. Seeing Lan Xiang at the side, she couldn't help but reprimand, all of you too, how did you serve her? The wind is cold at night, so how could you let your missy be exposed to the wind in the courtyard? Your missy is still in her mourning period and her feelings aren't good. How could she withstand the wind? Even if you couldn't persuade her, you should have taken the initiative to add more clothes for her. You've been with your missy for so many years, and I've only thought of you as someone who's considerate. I didn't expect you to be so careless. Younger sister, why don't you pick another 2 maidservants to serve by your side? Lan Xiang secretly complained and had already knelt down to admit her mistake. Gu Fengzi and Shi Yumei couldn't refute Sang Wan's words. Thank you for your concern, older sister. Gu Fengzi coughed and said gratefully, older sister is already tired from being busy all day, so there's no need for older sister to worry about me. Yesterday, I was willful, and it has nothing to do with Lan Xiang. She's very good, and I can use her well. For the time being, there's no need to add more servants. Add more servants? Gu Fengzi sneered in her heart. Sure enough, the fox's tail has been exposed. She wants to plant a spy in my courtyard. Don't even think about it. Younger sister too. Sang Wan inadvertently glanced at Shi Yumei and thought to herself, you heard it. She was willful, but it has nothing to do with me. I can't possibly keep an eye on her all day long. She smiled and said, you're already an adult, how can you be so willful? Moreover, other things were fine, but this body was his. If you're sick, you're the one suffering, and others will feel sorry for you. Don't do this again in the future. As she said this, she called Lan Xiang and smiled, good girl, I've wronged you. You're so loyal, and you didn't even try to defend yourself. You've been wronged. This servant doesn't dare. Lan Xiang lowered her head and quietly stood to the side. Shi Yumei saw that Gu Fengzi had already said so, but she couldn't do anything. She snorted lightly and didn't say anything else. Not long after, the doctor came. After diagnosis, he said that it was just a cold, and it was fine. He prescribed 2 doses of medicine and told the servants to decoct it and take it. She shouldn't be exposed to the wind, and she would recover in 1 or 2 days. Sang Wan ordered the servants to send the doctor out, and then instructed Lan Xiang, although the doctor said it's fine, this medicine is in your young miss's mouth, so you should be more careful. You can go down and get the medicine yourself. Later, don't be lazy, and personally decoct the medicine for your young miss to take. If you don't pay attention and something happens, even if your young miss forgives you, I won't forgive you. Go. Lan Xiang subconsciously glanced at Gu Fengzi. She saw that she was half lying and half leaning on the bed with a sickly face, and didn't even look at her. Lan Xiang softly responded and went to get the medicine. Gu Fengzi secretly cursed. Originally, she was thinking of tampering with the medicine, but Sang Wan made it so clear in front of Shi Yumei that Lan Xiang had to take full responsibility. It was clear that she was guarding against her, and also warning her. Chapter 91. Sister is still the most meticulous. Gu Fengzi expressed her gratitude on the surface, but secretly mocked, "You've thought of everything." "That's what I should do. Sister, rest well. If there's anything, just send someone to inform me." Sang Wan smiled. Sure you may snorted coldly, "What's the use of sending someone to inform you? You might as well tell my second brother. Oh right, when he comes back, don't forget to tell him that Fengzi is sick. He should come over to take a look." Sang Wan could not help but feel unhappy. "Big sister, don't worry. Young master will know. I want you to tell him." Sure you may thought to herself. Sure enough, she couldn't hide her true colors anymore. She was full of jealousy. "That's your duty as a wife." "All right." Sang Wan nodded. "Sister, you should go back. I'm fine here. How can I trouble sister and delay sister's work?" Seeing that Sure You May had finally hit the nail on the head, Gu Fengzi couldn't help but rejoice, and her eyes lit up. "Yes. Sister-in-law, go and do your work. I'll accompany Fengzi." Sure You May said casually, "Oh right, how's Banana Courtyard? I'll have to trouble sister-in-law." Sang Wan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was only the 15th day of the 8th lunar month yesterday, and only half of the day had passed. "Sister, you're already so anxious. I've already instructed them to clean it up tomorrow. After that, I'll invite sister over to take a look." "Is that so? Sister-in-law, you're really capable. Sister will thank sister-in-law first." Sure You May was slightly startled. She didn't expect Sang Wan to have already given the instructions. "Sister, you're too polite." Sang Wan smiled and got up to leave. "Cousin You May, are you moving?" "Congratulations." Gu Fengzi quickly smiled and sighed regretfully. "What a pity. If it was in the past, I could still give Cousin You May a few things as decorations, but now—" Sure You May sneered, "You don't have to feel guilty. What you don't have, she has plenty. Let's see if she's willing to part with her." Gu Fengzi couldn't wait for Sure You May to empty Ning Garden. She smiled and said, "Of course. Eldest cousin has always doted on eldest cousin the most. If you want anything, just go and take it. Big cousin will give it to you." "Oh, that's not good. Fengju doesn't care about what happens at home." Sure You May smiled. "So what? Big cousin is the true head of the household." Gu Fengzi said. The two looked at each other and smiled. During dinner that day, Sang Wan mentioned Gu Fengzi to Shi Fengju. "Younger sister caught a cold yesterday and had a doctor take a look at her this morning. Big sister accompanied her for a while and even asked why you didn't go over to take a look." Shi Fengju frowned subconsciously and asked without raising his head, "What did the doctor say?" "He's seen her and said that there's no harm in saying. He prescribed some medicine and I'll ask Lan Xiang to take care of her carefully." Shi Fengju didn't say anything else and only replied with an "oh." After a while, Sang Wan smiled again. "Oh right, I've already instructed the servants to clean Banana Courtyard. Since big sister and brother-in-law will be living there for a long time, they must be satisfied. Today, I've already told big sister that I'll be inviting her over. She can decide how to decorate the place and how to add things. She can just instruct the housekeeper to do so. Later on, I thought that brother-in-law might have some objections if I only asked big sister. Why don't you come with us the day after tomorrow and call brother-in-law along as well? We might as well ask both of them. That way the two of them can discuss it." Shi Fengju raised his head and smiled. "You're so considerate. All right, I won't go out the day after tomorrow." Sang Wan secretly let out a sigh of relief. "It's good that you're here. When the time comes, no matter what the two of them say, you'll be there to support them. I'll just be on the side and remember." Thinking about Shi Yume's inexplicable hostility and intentional or unintentional difficulties, Sang Wan felt a headache coming on. Then it's settled. Sang Wan smiled and said, "Big sister said that after they move into Banana Courtyard, I'll treat her to a meal. I don't know what she likes. When I asked her, She only smiled and said that she could prepare anything for me. But in the end, she's still the big sister. I have to take her preferences into consideration. I think you should know, right? Big sister is really too much. Shi Fengju smiled and shook his head. After thinking for a while, he said with a smile, "This season is just right for crabs. How about this, when the time comes, I'll get someone to bring 2 baskets of fat crabs back. Why don't you treat mother and second aunt to a meal? As for wine, there's aged chrysanthemum wine in the restaurant. It's pure, fragrant, sweet, and not easily intoxicating. I'll have someone send it over. As for other dishes and desserts, just prepare a few to go with the crabs." Sang-won was overjoyed when she heard this and quickly smiled, then it settled. "I'll let you know when I've decided on a date with big sister." "Okay." Shi Fengju saw her smiling eyes and curved eyebrows. He felt happy for no reason and said softly, "It's been hard on you these past few days. After big sister and the others settle down, I'll take you to the farmstead to relax for 2 days." Sang-won lowered her eyes and ate without saying a word. On this day, Sang-won and Shi Fengju invited Shi Yumei and her husband to Banana Courtyard. Shi Yumei saw Shi Fengju and frowned subconsciously. She glanced at Sang-won before saying to Shi Fengju angrily, "Second brother, why do you have to accompany me for such a small matter? Go do what you have to do. You don't have to be so particular when you're at home." Shi Fengju repeated the reason that Sang-won had told him before, and Shi Yumei remained silent. Ran Jixian was excited when he heard this. He glared at his wife and nodded before saying calmly, "Fengju is still the most considerate. Other places don't matter. Do you women understand what's going on in the study room?" Shi Fengju rolled his eyes in annoyance. He raised his hand and said, "Please," before entering the courtyard together. He pretended not to hear his father's words. With Shi Fengju around, Shi Yumei didn't have to do much. The living room, warm room, bedroom, bathroom, and side room were quickly arranged. Shi Yumei smiled faintly at Sang-won and said, "When the time comes, I'll have to trouble sister-in-law. I'd like to ask sister-in-law for a few decorations." Sang-won quickly agreed with a smile. Shi Fengju also smiled and said, "Big sister, when the time comes, I'll let Wan Yang open the storeroom to accompany you to choose. Screens, murals, tea sets, curtains, antique decorations, you can choose whatever you want. If there's nothing to your liking, we'll go shopping again. I guarantee that big sister will be satisfied." Shi Yumei smiled and said, "Then if I want a few pieces in your room, will you give them to me?" "Of course, why wouldn't I?" Shi Fengju glanced at Sang-won and could only answer in such a way. Shi Yumei had only asked casually, but when she saw Shi Fengju's glance, she felt uneasy. She thought that Sang-won was in charge of everything, but her own brother had to listen to her. She couldn't help but think that when the time comes, she would definitely choose a few pieces that Sang-won loved. When they arrived at the study room, trouble came. The study room was located in the east wing of the courtyard on the right side of the main room. There were 3.5 partitioned rooms in total, and it was very spacious and bright. Ran Jixian looked at it for a while with his hands behind his back. He claimed that the room was a little narrow and cramped, and that he had to get someone to open up all 3 rooms. Then, he had to build a large bookshelf against one wall, change the leaky window to a crescent window, hang a bamboo curtain, and place a long couch or an arhat bed in front of the window. Outside the window, he had to transplant 2 plum blossoms and a few green bamboos. Next to the plum blossoms and bamboos would be piled up. After that, he began to talk non-stop. He talked about the size and height of the desk, the type and size of the painting vat, the 4 treasures of the study, the murals, and other decorations, where to set up the long table, where to place the incense burner, and so on. In the end, he concluded, "Let's not talk about anything else. The furniture in this room should all come together and be made to fit the cracks in the floor. That way, it will look beautiful and elegant." Before Ran Jixian could finish, Shi Fengju's expression had already changed several times. Does this person even know how to spell the word shame? Who does he think he is? Brother-in-law, if we were to move like this, I'm afraid it would take at least half a year's time to get everything ready. What does brother-in-law plan to do during this time? Shi Fengju smiled faintly. No matter. Ran Jixian said without blushing, I can put up with it in the main room first. He then added a sentence that he thought carried a lot of weight. Then let's move slowly. I'm doing this for the good of the Shi family. If we build such a standard and elegant study room, the young masters of the Shi family can use it in the future if they want to study. This is what a real study room is. In other words, only a scholar like him would know how to decorate a study room. Do you people who reek of money know how to do it? Shi Fengju didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Meeting such a person, he felt that it was a big loss even if he got angry. Yes, brother-in-law is a real scholar. There are so many things to pay attention to, and it's so elegant. A scholarly family. It's really an eye-opener for me. How can our Shi family compare to your Ren family? From a businessman's point of view, I think it's not worth it to build it like this. Anyway, we won't need it in the future, so it's a waste of money. Shi Fengju saw that Ran Jixian was about to say something like, what a disgrace to the educated and vulgar. So he raised his voice and said, how about this? Anyway, our family won't need it in the future, so I don't want to waste the money. As long as brother-in-law is comfortable with it, it's fine. Then let's decorate it according to brother-in-law's study room. This way, brother-in-law will be more used to it. What do you think? Ran Jixian was suddenly speechless, and his face turned red and white. His family's study room? 4 to 5 years ago, when his parents were still alive, it still looked like a study room. But in the past 2 to 3 years, how could it still look like that? It was not much different from a storeroom. Shi Yumei saw that her husband was a little embarrassed, so she smiled and tried to smooth things over. Second brother, our family's master is just being kind. If we decorate the study room like this, we can still use it in the future. Why not? Big sister. It's still too early. Shi Fengju smiled and said, it'll be at least 7 to 8 years before my son can use the study room, right? By that time, this house will be so old that it'll need to be torn down and rebuilt. There won't be any need for it. Chapter 92. Ran Jixian replied with a sullen face, Yumei is right. I'm doing this for the good of the Shi family. Since you don't think it's necessary, then forget it. You can do whatever you want with the arrangement. Ran Jixian was indignant. He thought to himself, you really don't know how to appreciate my kindness. I'm only willing to put in the effort today because I'm in a good mood and you're lucky enough to hear it. What does your family know about decorating a study room? It's no wonder. You can't even produce a single scholar in a few lifetimes. How would you know about this? You only care about money. Shi Fengju was annoyed that he didn't know the severity of the matter and refused to let him off. He pretended not to understand Shi Fengju's expression and smiled lightly. His words were full of sincerity. How can I do that? Big brother-in-law, you can't say that. This study room will be used by you in the future. If you don't care about it, I'll be in a difficult position. After all, no one in our household knows about this. If you don't have any opinions, then I'll have to ask someone to decorate it according to the way you did at home. Ran Jixian was so angry that he couldn't speak. Shi Fengju smiled again. How about this? When I ask someone to decorate the room, big brother-in-law, you can watch from the side. If you think it's okay, then we'll do it. If you don't think it's okay, then we'll discuss it again. How about it? I think it's okay. Shi Yumei nodded with a smile. However, Ran Jixian had nowhere to vent his anger. He thought to himself, good? What's so good about it? Can I not think it's okay? If I don't think it's okay, you're going to use my family as an excuse. Ran Jixian couldn't help but feel annoyed at Shi Fengju for bullying him. He wanted to stand up straight and be firm, but when he thought about how he had nothing and even needed to rely on others to decorate his books, Ran Jixian couldn't be firm anymore. He could only nod his head carelessly. Then let's do it this way. Then it's settled. Shi Fengju smiled and said, big brother-in-law, if you have any suggestions, feel free to raise them. I guarantee that they will satisfy you and won't affect your mood to review your homework." Ran Zhixian snorted silently. He walked out of the study and glanced at the bananas and bamboos in the courtyard. He pointed at them and said, "The bananas are too dense, and the bamboos are blocking the light in the study. Ask someone to cut them down tomorrow." "Okay." Shi Fengju laughed, not minding at all. "Chop it down. Chop it down tomorrow. Do you want me to plant 2 plum trees for brother-in-law?" Ran Zhixian wanted to say no, but he nodded subconsciously. "Then I'll have to trouble you. Brother-in-law is too polite." Shi Fengju smiled and said, "Brother-in-law wants Lao Mei, right? I don't know if we have it in our residence. But don't worry, I'll be able to find a few in Qingzhou. I'll just buy them." He had a look that said, "I have plenty of money. I don't care how much it costs." Ran Zhixian felt dizzy and almost stumbled. He felt jealous and indignant. He secretly cursed the heavens for being unfair. How could this kind of commoner have so much wealth and live a life of extravagance, while he, a disciple of the scholarly sage, had to suffer poverty? He even had to live under someone else's roof and depend on someone else's whims. Sang Wan gasped in amazement and secretly thanked herself for her luck. Fortunately, she managed to pull Shi Fengju along today. Otherwise, how would she be able to hold her ground? She could not help but glance at Shi Fengju. With such a brother-in-law, no wonder he was so disgusted with her, who was also from a scholarly family. "This is really, second brother, you're not going out today, right?" Shi Yumei suddenly called out to Shi Fengju after they left Banana Courtyard. Shi Fengju raised his eyebrows. "Is something the matter, big sister?" Shi Yumei smiled. "If you're not going out, let's go to Peony Park together. Speaking of which, you, and Cousin Fengzi haven't had a good chat for a long time." Sang Wan was calm and collected. Her eyes drooped as if she did not hear anything. "No," Shi Fengju smiled. "I'm just about to go out. If big sister wants to go, you can go alone. Fengzi is in mourning, so big sister can go and take a look. Don't sit for too long." "What's wrong with that?" Shi Yumei smiled. "Mourning is about the intention. It's quite pitiful for Fengzi to be alone in Peony Park all day. Why can't we go and accompany her? Otherwise, how will she survive this half a year? There's no one who cares about her." Shi Fengju unconsciously frowned. What is she trying to do now? No one cares about her? Does she lack enough to eat or wear? Does she need everyone to revolve around her all day so that she can live her life? Furthermore, half a year? Shi Fengju raised his head in confusion. Isn't she going to mourn for 3 years? You still don't know. Shi Yumei was also surprised. She then told him how Gu Fengzi went to Guangling Temple to perform the ritual, how she dreamed of Gu Jin, and how the abbot interpreted the dream. She could not help but blame Shi Fengju. You too, you don't even know about this. You really don't care about her. Why didn't you go and see her last night? Shi Yumei glanced at Sang Wan suspiciously. Shi Fengju followed her gaze and his face sank. It was too late last night, so I didn't go. Wan Nyang has already told me that she has seen a doctor. Let her rest well. I don't have the time to revolve around her all day. He then said that he had something to do and pulled Sang Wan away. Mourning for half a year? Shi Fengju sneered in his heart. To be able to do such a thing in such a dignified manner, she was indeed the only one. She had always been a smart person. Shi Fengju could not help but sigh inwardly. Unfortunately, her intelligence was always used in the wrong place. Shi Yumei and Ran Zhixian both wanted to move into Banana Garden as soon as possible. They actively monitored the progress of Banana Garden every day. After 7 days, everything was in place. They chose an auspicious day and moved in 2 days later. Shi Yumei indeed went to Ning Garden to look for Sang Wan to pick out several vases, furnishings, calligraphy, and paintings. Sangwon had never seen these things as her own. She did not feel the slightest bit of heartache when giving them away. She did not even blink her eyes, let alone take them to heart. Shi Fengju felt apologetic when he saw this. He comforted her and said that if she needed anything, he would buy it for her later. Sangwon dismissed it with a smile and did not say anything. On the day that Shi Yumei moved in, Gu Fengzi was not present. However, she had Lan Xiang represent her to congratulate Shi Yumei and say a few auspicious words. This was not the main reason. The main reason was that Lan Xiang had finally stopped Shi Fengju. These days, Shi Fengju had not taken even half a step into Peony Park. Gu Fengzi was truly anxious. She had asked Shi Yumei indirectly, but all she heard was that he was busy. However, Gu Fengzi knew that these words could only fool Shi Yumei. They could not fool her. If he really had the heart, how could he not have the time to spare? Gu Fengzi saw that Shi Yumei had been dismissed by Shi Fengju with just a few words. She could not help her at all, so she could only use her only trick. She had Lan Xiang go invite him. However, even if Lan Xiang went to invite him, she was still just a servant. If Shi Fengju did not put her in his eyes, then she was nothing. She could not use a rope to tie Shi Fengju to Peony Park. However, today was different. She stopped Shi Fengju in front of Shi Yumei and said with a pitiful smile, "If young master has the time, please go and see Missy. Missy has always been thinking about young master." When Shi Fengju heard this, he felt even more disgusted. A woman who was in mourning did not show her filial piety, but kept thinking about another man. Even if that man was him, he did not feel happy. Instead, he felt a little disappointed. Shi Yumei also pushed him and said with a smile, "That's right. You should go and see Fengzi. Every time I say something, you have something to say to me. I can't win against you. Today, no matter what, you have to go and see her. Fengzi is really pitiful." As she spoke, she glanced at Sangwon. "You weren't like this in the past. Did someone say something to you behind your back?" Sangwon pretended that she did not hear anything and instructed the maidservants to carefully carry the things into the house so that they would not knock against each other. "Big sister." Shi Fengju frowned and said, "Do you think your brother is such an indecisive person? Who can say anything to me? Who can make a decision for me?" He thought to himself, right now, "The ones who are desperately trying to help me make a decision are you and that good cousin of mine." That's true. My brother is not a muddle-headed person. Shi Yumei also laughed and said, "Big sister, Rizhong is in a mess right now, so I won't keep you here. Quickly go. Go." Shi Fengju was helpless. If he did not go, who knows how long this sister of his would nag in his ears. "Forget it, go." Thus, he turned around and walked out with a straight face. Lan Xiang was overjoyed. She hurriedly bowed and thanked Shi Yumei before running after him. "Missy! Missy! Young master is here to see you." As soon as they entered the courtyard, Lan Xiang shouted loudly. Gu Fengzi was overjoyed. She hurriedly tidied her clothes and hair before taking the initiative to welcome him. "Big cousin." Gu Fengzi looked at Shi Fengju affectionately. You finally came to see me. How is it? Have you been well recently?" Shi Fengju tried his best to make his voice sound calm. He endured his impatience and walked into the house. Thinking about it carefully, it had not been long since he last saw her. But at this moment, when she stood in front of him, Shi Fengju felt a sense of unfamiliarity. His heart did not have the slightest ripple. It was as if he was facing someone completely unrelated to him. Thinking that this person was actually the concubine that he had welcomed into the house, Shi Fengju suddenly felt a chill down his spine. "Feng is fine. Thank you for your concern, big cousin." Gu Fengzi hurriedly invited him to take a seat and smiled softly. "These days, it's all thanks to cousin Yumei coming to accompany Feng. Thinking back to the days when the three of us were together, it really makes me happy. It's great that big cousin is living with our family from now on. In the future, the three of us can often be together. Although big sister is living at home, She is now the daughter-in-law of the Ren family. She has to serve her own husband. How can it be the same as before? Shi Fengju was even more unhappy when she mentioned the past. Big cousin is right. Gu Fengzi's temper was exceptionally good today. Hearing this, not only did she not refute, she even smiled and admitted her mistake. It's clear that I said something silly. Not only is big cousin different from before, but you and I are also different. We are finally together. After all these years, we have finally achieved a positive result. It's clear that big cousin's feelings for me have not changed. Feng Er is really happy. Lan Xiang immediately served the tea and tactfully retreated. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.